What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Representing the Resin. My name is Jameson Wellborn, and today we are joined by my good friend, co-founder, and head of cultivation at Parkland Flower, Mr. Dustan McLean. Dustan, thank you so much for taking the time, bro.
No worries, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're juggling a lot of stuff right now, so I appreciate you coming on. But
No worries, bro.
Before we jump into Parkland and all the work you're doing over there and all the awesome projects you're working on. As always, we like to take it back to the beginning. So I want to know a little bit more about you. So tell me a little bit about your childhood. Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Edmonton. We lived there for a year, and then I was basically raised in a small community outside Spruce Grove. I was there till I was about my mid-20s. Then I moved to Edmonton, where I met my first wife. But yeah, a lot of my childhood was spent in Spruce Grove. Pretty conservative community, but some really good characters there that I ended up still have lifelong friendships with from a lot of people from there. So my parents still live there. So
what was school like growing up? Like what's your parents do for a living?
Yeah, sure. My dad was a firefighter for over 30 years. My mom was a dietary technologist, so she worked at an extended care facility for years. So I grew up around people who needed extended care. So it gave me a lot of empathy and compassion being around those people. Some of them, people who were completely normal, just had a broken neck, so they were completely paralyzed. Seeing people with just all kinds of issues, learning from my mom how to be around, and work with those people and enjoy their company and that kind of stuff. And then being around my dad, being around firefighter, I was always busy with him, nonstop, always out just doing what firefighters do. So yeah, and I have 3 other siblings, 2 brothers and a sister, and it's a big family.
Where do you fall in?
I am the oldest. Yeah, and then my sister Becky, who's a teacher out in Hinton, and then 2 brothers here. We're all still in Alberta. My brother one brother owns a construction company. The other one works up in the oil sands, running heavy equipment up there. So
that's awesome. So let's talk about, when was your first experience or your first memory of cannabis? Like, when did you become aware of the plant?
Well, obviously in school, they did a good job of trying to scare you away from it. So we didn't have DARE. DARE wasn't around yet when I was in school. It was a lot of it was just, basically this is your brain and this is your brain on drugs, the old commercial, like that's what we were fed.
Yeah.
Right. And it didn't matter what the drug was. So my first experience actually wasn't really a good one in a sense. I was at a party when I was 16, and we were out at Alberta Beach, and a guy brought out just a turkey plate full of weed, and people started into it, and I was like, oh, okay. And my one buddy got super paranoid. He went off the deep end, and I thought it was because of him smoking a joint. It was actually because he was juicing. And he was ripping on alcohol, and he was squirreled out. So for a while there, I was sitting there, going, is this really good shit? My first real positive experience was my uncle rolling a joint for my cousin who had cancer, and he was hidden away and he was rolling a joint. And I walked up and I did a double take, and I was like, "Uncle," and he said, "Jason needs this. He's going through chemo and it's his medicine." And I stopped and I sat for 20 minutes, I think I was 15, 17 at the time, 17 when that happened. And so it was right after that other experience. And I kind of started thinking, and then I started, when I was playing football, buddy who I played football with, Mark, he really loved to smoke dope. So he got me into it when we were playing football. And kind of my last year of high school was spent smoking a lot of weed and just experiencing that, and just playing football and smoking weed, and sneaking joints onto the back of the bus. This is in 1996 and stuff, so wasn't a could have gotten a lot of trouble and stuff. We had a blast. So that was, and then just having my cousin medicinally take it, and then myself, my dad and I went to the doctor. I found out that I had the precursors for glaucoma. I had what's called hyperocular tension. And so the ophthalmologist looked at my dad and said, I wish I could prescribe your kid some marijuana. And my dad was a hippie, and my dad had smoked it years ago and stuff. And so he was like, okay, whatever. But I really started thinking of it as a medicine quite young, actually, younger than a lot of people. Just, a lot of people want to get high and stuff. I kind of started self-medicating with it, and it really helped my eyes. It started helping a lot of things. Saw how it extended my cousin's life. He did eventually pass away, but I think that the cannabis probably gave him an extra year on his life, probably of just living comfortably.
Yeah.
So, that kind of stuff. So my first real positive experience was seeing my uncle, medicating his son with a plant like that. It kind of opened my eyes.
Yeah. Were you immediately after that drawn to trying the plant or trying it again or for the first time? Like, what was that first experience for you like?
My first experience was in Spruce Grove with a guy named Dalen, and I saw him a couple of years ago, and we talked about it. I'll never forget. He had this homemade pipe, and I took it, and stuff back then was pretty expensive for us per gram. $20 a gram back then just to get it in high school, all hush hush. And I remember he put a bowl in the pipe, and I inhaled, and I coughed into the pipe and blew the whole bowl out. And he was like, the fuck you just, and I was like, oh, and he's like, yeah, never again, bro. Like, we're done. You're not smoking with me again. Like you owe me $5 kind of shit, right? He was kidding, but I mean, and then, so I went, I took a smaller inhale. And actually I remember sitting in the car and we were listening to My Bloody Valentine, because he was really into that kind of music. And suddenly I just started hearing different instruments and stuff. I was just like, shit, okay. This is, and then as I got more into it and then started smoking more and just doing other stuff, it really just made me go like, fuck, like, wow. Like the more I smoked, the better I felt, the more I heard in music and stuff like that. Just really opened my eyes to a lot of stuff.
And so was it like immediate that you began using cannabis regularly, or did that slowly take some time to become habitual?
I basically became a daily user. It was kind of, I look back on them like, wow, but I essentially started buying, a gram a day or getting a 2-chip, as, we call them, getting a quick, 2 for $25 or whatever we could get. And I start getting that. And then I started saying, why am I buying it? I'll maybe try to grow it. But yeah, I was right away. I was a daily user. I think with a small tolerance break, 2 different tolerance breaks that I've taken in my life, I think I've pretty much been smoking daily since I was 18.
Yeah.
And those tolerance breaks were like, well, the last one lasted only 6 days. And I was like, you know what? I need it. And it's not that. It's just, I just wanted to be able to go a couple days, and I went 6 days, and I went, you know what, I'm good. I can go back, and I love it too much. I just love it too much. It's part of me. It's part of who I am. My wife literally thinks I like sweat it out of my pores. She's like, some days you just reek. Yeah. And I love it, but it's in you. And yeah, so.
So was it something you had to hide from your parents, or your dad being somewhat of a hippie, were you able to kind of have some unspoken understanding?
My dad and I talked about it on the way home from the cottage. I was 14 at the time, actually. I asked him, Dad, you ever did drugs? And he looked at me driving our 88 Suburban, and he went like this, I did a bit of this. And I said, and he says, but I don't want you doing that yet. He said, yet. I said, I don't want you doing that yet. And I was pretty good. Like I said, I didn't do it till a little later on. And my mom came from a very conservative family. So she was like she equated it to like cocaine. Like it was basically one of the worst things you could do, right? Like I remember my mom catching me weighing out my first packs when I was like 19, 20 years old in the garage at my parents' place, and she lost her fucking mind. So, My parents have become so awesome about it though. Like that's what I can like, so I had to hide it for sure. I remember the very first plant that I ended up growing. My brother, I was 18, he was 13. We had one of those standalone closets that you buy at IKEA or whatever, and I emptied it out and I filled it with tin foil and put in some cheap lights that I found, and we started getting this plant growing. And me and my brother's only 13, so we thought this was the coolest shit. I'm just like, yeah, man. And I remember my dad came downstairs one day and he goes, "Hey, I saw that little project in your room. Just to let you know, you're wasting a time. It's a male." And he walked away. And so so I was like, shit. My brother's like, well, I don't know. I guess it's a male. So yeah, we pitched that. We kept growing in that thing though, and he let us do it. My mom never really knew. He really didn't say much. And then my brother and I started growing at the cottage, and their biggest complaint was how much it smelled like skunks around there. And they just couldn't figure it out. And my brother and I were both doing it, and we didn't know it sometimes. This was later on in life, but we were both doing it, didn't even know we were doing it around each other and stuff. So my mom's side of the family, like I said, super conservative. My dad's side, my grandma, bless her fucking soul, she was one of the most supportive people about it, actually. She looked at, she didn't care. She joked about how when my dad went away to Nate when he was 18 and could like literally leave for college and run away from Saskatchewan, he said, "Oh, just take care of these plants. They're my tomato plants." And she's like, "I knew right away they weren't tomato plants. They were those dirty old skunk plants." And she still took care of them. Like, that's the funniest part, right? So she was just really good about it. My dad's side of the family is really there's growers on that side of the family. My uncle, my cousins, they're all older, got much older than me. They've been growing for years. So after we all kind of started talking, that's when it became real fun, because it's, family, and we're sharing, and, showing up to family reunions. We have all our own different bags of what we've been growing and stuff like that. And so, and now my mom's side, my uncle and aunt, who are teachers, ultra conservative, this past summer, they looked at me and said, "For years, we were wondering what the fuck you were doing with your life. And now we are so proud of what you are doing with your life." And my uncle had a real bad experience his first time. His friend hid it in a potpourri jar. So when they went to go smoke it, it smelled like potpourri and tasted like that. And it made him just like, he hated it. And that was years and years ago. Well, I took him a bag of cherry cake and just a bunch of different stuff, stuff that smells garlicky, stuff that smells fruity. And he's a chef on the side as well as being a teacher. And he was just stunned. They were floored by the different smells, and they love it now. They're starting to dabble a bit into edibles as my dad has as well and stuff again. So family support's huge, and I'm lucky that I've had quite a bit. So yeah.
That's really cool that you had kind of like that family unit to be, once those early years wore off and you were able to come out of it more, that there was kind of like an open talk at family get-togethers and comparing plants. What was your first move out of high school? Like, did you have a profession that you went after, or did you just move to Edmonton and seek fame and fortune?
Coming out of Edmonton, I moved to Edmonton kind of a couple years after high school. I had one of my best friends, Corey Johnson, he was known as Dank Man. Him and I smoked a lot of weed, and what we wanted to do coming out, he was one of those, he was a white guy who was really into rap really hard, but we could go into a club, like a hip hop club, and Corey demanded, like, he got respect. Do you know what I mean? And so he loved his weed. He loved that culture, like the Jamaican culture. He was in Cali. His dad was a trucker. So he was able to go down with his dad into California and stuff and come back with like the bags they used and stuff to tote weed around. And he came back with some genetics hidden and this and that. And our plan was to be musicians and growers and just dope guys, because he was a big musician. And I'm a drummer. So we were going to do that. And then Corey passed away when I was 20. And that put me on kind of a bit of a shit, just crappy time for a couple of years. And then I ended up meeting my wife and my first wife. And so I moved to Edmonton and I worked a couple of regular jobs. And Did some things that eventually required me to get really heavy into growing once people found out I could grow. And so I started a couple small grows here and there and helped people with their grows. I had a couple young kids with me, so I really didn't want to have it at home at the time. My wife at the time had two kids, fairly young, one of them being 6, my daughter Trish. And so I didn't want that to be around them too closely and stuff, just because, we live in Edmonton, and so I help people with their grows. And eventually I went into digital media because I've always been an artist. And so I went to school, got my graphic designer diploma, and then went and got my digital media production diploma and then I went and started doing as a day job to get a good T4. I was doing marketing and graphic design. That's what I did for 10, 15 years.
Well, how big were these shows? Like, were these 5 lighters, 10 lighters, 20 lighters?
The biggest one that we had done back then, probably five. They weren't that big. And then eventually we got to the 20s. Yeah. And then when I got out into my own and started doing like my own stuff, when we had a couple places to grow south of here, we're talking 50 lighters in each place, right? So it grew as I grew, and as demand grew, I grew, I guess you could say.
What were some of those cultivars that were turn your phone on the side, Dustin?
Yeah. There we go.
What were some of the cultivars that you first grew, or you first remember growing out there in Edmonton?
Okay, so first couple ones were obviously bag seed. I didn't have a clue what they were. And back then around here, at least in my experience, a lot of stuff wasn't named. Like it was, here's your 3 bags. This one's killer. This one's this. The first one I actually really remember was wheelchair. And I'm pretty sure Dr. Bud, who was at Grow Up, he was the creator of it, right? So right, so he had talked about that, and so it was kind of funny. That was the big first one, and I remember it was different. And then the second one was Northern Lights. Northern Lights was a game changer around here, to be quite honest. I remember the first time I had it, I went, well, I need to have this a lot more.
Did that come to you via seed or via cut?
I had it via cut. Nice. So I had smoked it first, and this guy's like, he's like, I have an opportunity. I can get 3 plants from this guy. And I said, I want just one. Just give me one. You can take 2. And then shout out to Glenn, who got me that years and years ago. I remember having that joint underneath the stairs in his house because we were keeping away from his wife and kids. And that first pull, I was like, holy shit! Like this is awesome. So. Or in the early days, those were the 2 big ones. Wheelchair, though, like that one I'll never forget. I will never forget. And that one I got from seed.
Were these single-ended, like air-cooled, high-pressure?
We started with street lamps. So, we had some friends whose parents worked for Public Works and stuff like that in town and stuff, so we could get like bulbs, and we did some stuff we would never do again, ever. Like, thank fuck phones weren't around or anything like that. Like, we just did some stupid shit. And then, I remember I went to a garage sale, and there was this hippie guy in Edmonton, and he was doing this garage sale in right off 118th Avenue, 50th Street, right on in the Beverly area and stuff. And he had this big ballast with this huge bulb on the end. He goes, "This will change your life, brother." And I was like, well, I can get these bulbs at work too and stuff. And so we hooked it up. And I mean, it was one of the best plants I ever grew. And we started single enders. And yeah, we just kind of did it how we did it. And then I ended up in my later places. I was able to incorporate sunlight as well as some supplemental light. So I was lucky to work in some barns that had some retractable roofs. So that was some converted barns that we were able to use. So
how is the quality? Like, looking back, knowing what you know now, understanding what you understand now, how does it stack up?
A lot has changed, for sure. everything's a lot like, I mean, everything's changed. I still have one of my first buds. It's brown as hell, but I have a first bud sitting in a thing of Tupperware here. So it's in my other shop where all my dope stuff is. But I mean, it was a little more loose, a little more airy. But it was really good. Like, I mean, we had some, you'd have your shitty weed, and then you got, like I said, that wheelchair that came along. And in Alberta, stuff took a while to get here, especially here in the prairies. It just took a while to get here from BC. And I mean, we didn't get anything from the east because we were shipping out east, and they were sending us hash from the east, pretty much. Like, that's what we were getting on our end from out east. So I didn't get a lot that way. But the stuff was, I mean, some of it was fantastic, but I don't even know how it would stack up today to what we have.
It's a hard question, but like, it's really cool for guys like you who are actually there and actually looking at stuff and growing in these conditions. Like,
the trim is different.
Like, were you living and dying by, like, where were you getting your information? Was this just like told to you, passed down to you? Were you on the forums? Where were you getting?
So I was not a big internet guy when the internet first came out. And again, in Alberta, I was pretty private about what I was doing. So in order to get High Times magazines, I knew some of the store owners around here would literally write your name down if you buy them, or write a description, because they were that. So I would dive. I knew the day they would throw out the magazines into the dumpster, and you had to rip off the front cover to do that. They'd rip off the front cover and then throw them in the dumpster. So I would dive into the dumpster and pull out all the High Times magazines that I could find. So that's how it started for me. That's where I'd get my info. And then I bought a book from written by Mel Frank and Ed Rosenthal, one of their first books together. I think one of their only books together. I don't know how many they've done, but I got that book, and that's kind of where it really changed for me, because it was about this thick, and I went, well, growing weed is fucking hard. If that book is that thick, like, it's not just simply put it in the ground and away you go. And that's where I started really reading the articles, Ask Ed, reading those little things in there, just reading that. And I mean, some of the info has obviously changed from what we know and stuff, but a lot of the basic principles are still there. And then running into somebody that you knew wasn't a cop, finally, that you could talk weed with and stuff. And that was few and far between. And actually, a lot of them became through my brother, who, they were a little more brazen about, he's like, oh, we'll go talk to this guy. Or I'd meet somebody, just in passing, or, I didn't even go to the hydro stores a lot. I'd send somebody into the hydro stores. I was nervous about it, man, just because I had a young family. And my mom, I was really worried how disappointed my mom would be in me if she found out what I was really doing. Like, I remember the dealing days when they thought I was installing showers during the day, and me and my buddy were running packs between Calgary and Edmonton with cop scanners and pagers and everything up in my 1989 Pontiac J2000 tinted out, whatever the hell it was. It was just the biggest piece of shit, but we're rolling around with packs packed in everywhere. And then we got this radio, the RCMP frequency book from Radio Shack. So we can actually, like, as we're driving, go to the communities and we punch it in and listen to them and stuff. And we were so nervous, like, so that kind of stuff. Like, so I learned, but anyways, I got most of my education. A lot of it was from getting them from High Times magazines. I only started going on grow forums 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago.
Wow.
I went on a couple on Facebook, and social media is such a cesspool. Like, sometimes it's just, for me, it's, so, you hop on, you're like, well, have a look at my plants. This is the way I've been growing for years. And now I'm moving to LED. And I moved to LED years ago. I started, and people were all over me about it.
Yeah.
Like, that's a joke. Like, I remember going into the hydro store and starting to talk to them about LED. And they're like, yeah, we'll never sell LED. And now all they're selling is, they'll sell the odd, HPS or whatever, but they're selling a ton of LED now because the technology's there. So, and I'm constantly learning. So
were there, like, after the NL5, were you running that for time, or did you have cuts moving in and out? Were you pheno hunting at all, or was it all production?
All production, buddy.
Yeah.
All productions.
And were there any, like, real turning points in your cultivating career where you had massive realizations that resulted in massive gains in your rooms going forward?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it was all production, like I said, but realizing for me, realizing the four fundamentals that I like to talk about is your light, your soil, your air, and your water. And when I really started to dial in my environments, I realized your environment, if you're growing indoor, is key. So you have to master your environment to master your plant, really, for me anyways. Like if your plant doesn't have a good environment, you're not going to get the full expression of it and all that stuff. So figuring out that just dialing in my environment to get that production to where it needed to be in order for us to be making good money at what, in order to do what I needed to do in my life. Just to do it all was, and to get that production out and make it worthwhile was just realizing about my environment. And then the biggest other one for me, honestly, was I had to learn patience. I had to learn patience, and I still to this day, there's the odd day I struggle, and I really want to try something, or I really want to, I want to cut that plant. I'm so excited about it, but I've learned to get much better, learning how to let go of genetics if they're causing you trouble, and you don't have time to hold on to them. You got to let them go, and I let go of some things I really regret now, but I had no time to work with them to see what it really was, what was going on with them, and. Yeah, but the biggest realization for me anyways was just getting that environment really dialed in and understanding that if you want that crop to really bounce and go, you got to be able to give it that environment to do it, especially if you're doing it indoors or, outdoors. You're kind of, especially in Alberta, you're beholden to the weather gods, and they ain't fun up here. So a lot of it's done indoor, right? Or in greenhouses even. So
100%.
So.
What came after NL5? Like, we often talk about popular strains during certain times in British Columbia and Ontario, but rarely do we talk about Alberta. And I think you have a unique insight. Like, what did you see as far as varietals coming after that NL?
The big ones were like biggest ones after. I mean, I ran some stuff for some people that was their own proprietary stuff. But the big stuff after was like, I remember when Green Crack was big out here, really big in Edmonton. Like I couldn't, Green Crack, when it took off, train wreck. I remember this one that was around here, and it was called Purple Indica. I don't have a clue what it was. It was super, super purple. I can't remember, but it wasn't even that good. But people, just because they didn't see it that often around here, it just flew. So, but in Alberta, I mean, Green Crack, I remember when Green Crack hit, that was a big one. Trainwreck. Fruity Pebbles was big around here. Fruity Pebbles was pretty big. Some Diesels started making their way a little bit kind of out here and stuff. But the biggest one I remember outside of NL was Green Crack for me. And then, I mean, like I said, I ran some other stuff. The guys came up to me like, here you go. Here's your cut. This is, we'd like you to, can you run this for us? And I take a run or two to figure it out. And once we row it, and then they'd pick it up and wave it. Some of that stuff, I have no clue what it was, to be honest with you. Skunk was huge. I remember having Skunk 1.
Yeah. When did the idea or the potential of true, real recreational legalization start to become a potential reality on the horizon for you? Like, was it 2016 or was it later?
No, I wanted to go legal I wanted everything to be legal back in like 2014. Like 2014 is when I kind of started getting on. When Mark Emery got taken down to the US, I was on one of those trains of free Mark Emery, and I kind of really got involved then. And that's, I'm not any supporter of Mark Emery now in any sense, but back then he was the Prince of Pot around here. He was seen as a martyr for getting, taken out of the country, taken down there for seeds and stuff like that. As a guy that was dabbling in some seeds and stuff, obviously I saw the money he was making doing that and stuff. So I was hoping, this goes legal. There's going to be some serious opportunities here, but I knew it was going to take a while based on the governments that were in power, right? I knew that with the conservative government, we weren't going to see a change in that. So as one of my other jobs, I used to work for political parties, doing some graphic design works, that kind of stuff for emails. I worked for every single party, and I started working for the Liberals that election because of their cannabis platform. And so I went, I got to support, this is the only way it's going to go legal. And so I kind of just started prepping then, really probably 2014, 2015 is when I really, and then 2016, that's when I really I became a designated grower for the first time, and started kind of, ACMPR and all that stuff, doing all that. And then 2017, I got laid off. I got asked to leave my job because my medical card fell out of my wallet on a Friday.
Get out.
And on the Monday, I was released without cause. They gave me a nice severance, but it was no bueno for them. And I know I'm 100% sure. Like, I won an award that Friday for the company for our like commercial work, like our marketing stuff. I won an industry award, and then I was gone on the Monday, and it was all because of that cannabis card. I had the look on their faces when it slipped out of my wallet. It was a Metrum card. Like, I'll never forget it. It was a Metrum card, so I could get, like, I was getting stuff. I was getting the Metrum oil.
Yeah.
That they were coming out with in the early days, right? And I was like, this is bad shit, so I'll get it. So they took me out, and so I looked at my wife, and we lived in this town called Morinville, and I started doing a mock news show because I was bored and I was really fried, and I was growing and I just had nothing to do. And through this news show and other stuff, I realized, I want to start growing. So 2018, I went to the county and I had a plan and everything, and they told me I was good to go, paid a bunch of money to a fellow for some property and stuff. And then they were like, yeah, no, this isn't no good. We're not doing it out here. It was because farmers didn't want me out there in the county at the time. They were scared I was going to build this giant Aurora-sized thing. And so I got a lot of pushback from farmers, so that didn't go through. And then eventually I met Kylie, and then that's when we started Parkland. So, but I started thinking about going legal probably around 2014, 2015.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible that you put all that money into a project and then just had the county turn around on you. And unfortunately, that's not a unique story. Like, so many people have suffered like that, putting a lot on the line and then only to have the county change the finish point or change the rules or reject the application after accepting. So that's incredible.
It's horrible. It was horrible. It was infuriating. And then we have a meeting. They're like, oh, hey, by the way, we're going to do like a county meeting or whatever. Come at this date. You show up with all your stuff. Like, yeah, we're going to adjourn this. And they just start playing the games, right? And now they were begging for people to come back after, they started begging people, in the town that I was in, they made it very accessible for it because they saw the shit show that the county had made of it. So the town themselves, who I'm friends with one of the councillors there, a couple of them, they still want to grow to happen there. They're actually a pretty cannabis friendly town. So, but the county we're in Alberta.
Yeah.
It's a very conservative mindset.
Yeah.
And so in certain pockets for sure. And so to fight it was like, well, and then so we went to another county and we're in Parkland now. Thus Parkland Flower, and Parkland has worked with us. They changed stuff for Kylie and myself, and Kylie really fought with them, and they really listened to us on a lot of stuff, and they've worked with a lot of growers to get grows going in Parkland County. So I can't say enough about the county out here. I mean, are they still difficult to work with? They can be at times for sure, because they're just doing what they do, but they're letting a lot of people start grows out here, with not a lot of red tape.
So I actually met Kylie before I met you. And Kylie is an incredible human who, goes at regulators so fiercely. It's great. I love it, and I got mad love and respect for Kylie. I want to learn, because you guys originally came together from a medical standpoint to help a sick child. Is that correct?
So my sister-in-law was taking pictures for Kylie and our other very first original business partner, Jill. She was taking product pictures of Jill's topicals and stuff. And Kylie had mentioned how they were looking for a grower to grow for the topicals out on Jill's land, which is right off the river, 140 acres, all this and that. And my sister-in-law, Nicole, looked over and said, well, my brother-in-law grows. And literally, Kylie had me on the phone in 5 minutes. And we talked for probably 45 minutes as my sister-in-law sat in the car next to Kylie, quite uncomfortable, probably like, I'd like to leave. But Kylie, as you know, just, and we just got into business right then and there. We were meeting at Tim Hortons within a couple days. And we started growing for an amazing young fellow who had brain tumors. And we started growing the Fruity Pebbles, which I'd gotten from my mentor, Jacques, who was actually dying from cancer at that time and didn't tell me. And he'd given me a bunch of genetics. And later on, I found out it was to pass on to me. So anyways, he said, this Fruity Pebbles has really helped me. I make RSO out of it. I've done a bunch of other stuff. You run it for this little guy. And so we started running it. And after his treatments, he didn't need the steroid. Like, the doctors were amazed with what was happening. So he's in remission now, I believe. I believe he's going to school. He's fighting hard. And yeah, so that's really how Kylie and I started getting into this really heavy. And then kind of just, again, we were going to grow for topical and stuff. And then the county we had to fight with the county on where we were originally going to grow in this 140 acres because it's Nature Conservancy land, actually, we found out. And so we found out we couldn't actually grow there. So my original business partner, Jill, she had to bow out. Excuse me. Kylie and I found another business partner named Dustan. And he came on board. And we started with Parkland. We found a building, worked, had a great landlord to work with, and then we went on the roller coaster that is legalization and getting a facility going. We were 3 days late to the application for the thing of having to have your facility beforehand. Like, we'd actually had a bunch of stuff done, and they'd come back and said, no, you guys actually have to have the facility now. And so we had to rush and do a bunch of stuff. But
for those people listening that aren't from Canada or within the legal system, like, we had, what Dustin's referring to is, we had a hard date within our legalization that I believe happened in 2019.
Yeah.
That previous to 2019, you were able to begin your long and arduous application prior to having your facility built, or even your land secured technically.
Yeah.
And so there were some definite flaws in the system, because what was happening was, as the government, the body Health Canada, was looking to process these licenses, there were a number of licenses that were just being more or less placeholders for people that were trying to leverage that locked up opportunity into some kind of sale. And that worked for many, many months.
Sure did.
Then it stopped working and it created a backlog. And so that was the decision made there. And what it ended up doing is really hurting the real applicants like Dustin and Parkland, who now needed to completely raise all the money, build the whole facility, hang the lights, everything but the plants, and then submit the license and wait. So why don't you talk to the people? Because luckily enough, there's a lot of people watching, and not all of them are from Canada. So the licensing process that you went through and the timeline of that is something I'd like you to share with the people.
Yeah, excuse me. I remember I have text from Kylie like in December of 2018 saying we're going to have plants in the ground on December 7th. And I was like, sweet. We didn't get approved until August 14th of 2020. So over a year. COVID happened, which didn't it kind of actually, I'm not going to lie, COVID actually helped us in a sense because it delayed everything. We were able to kind of take advantage. We didn't have obviously any money coming in. We were pouring money out for rent, everything else. So, but basically it took a year for us to get approved. We had to put all of the rooms together. Look, we had to have everything together. You have to do what's called an evidence package, where you go through and film everything to prove to Health Canada you're doing everything. You have to get all your genetic declaration in order. There's a lot of paperwork involved. You have to get what's called a CRA license, so you can sell. So that's the tax man essentially. And as we were building, you realize there's this thing in the industry called a green tax, and it's when people find out you're getting into cannabis, they charge you 15 to 20% more, just because they think you're just rolling in it. So we found our expenses just went through the roof just to get the grow going. So once we really got going, well, then you have to deal with well, we got licensed, like I said, a year and a half later after applying, and then you have to start finding. Well, you have to grow. So you're really not allowed to start growing till they tell you you're allowed to start growing. They told us right a couple days before you can move plants in, but you can't start to flower them. You can't do this. You can okay. So we got them in, and we had everything ready. The day that we got licensed, we had like our clone trays, right? We had everything ready to go. We had, we started running right away pretty much. We had plants actually in the pots ready to go. So, and clones ready as backups. And we started just getting everything done. And that's all fine and dandy. And then you got to find a way to sell it, because you have to have what's called a sales amendment and a processing license. Like, you can't just go sell your weed. Like, you can't just go and call the province up and say, hey, we have like this lot. Do you guys want it? No, you actually have to have a sales. So back then, it was almost impossible for a micro, which is what we were, which is a very small grow that's limited to what we can do. I think only one micro had a sales license at that time, and maybe not even one. The law was kind of set up, so we had to go to the big LPs and work with them to distribute our stuff, which meant we were losing money right off the top to them. And they also dictated a lot of how the stuff went after that. They decided when you'd get your money, a lot of things. So I learned a lot of lessons early on kind of you learn lessons real quick. Bills don't get paid, that kind of stuff. We were really lucky. We were able to hang on. And then I realized by reading that you didn't have to have a sales amendment to do genetics, like to actually do seeds. You didn't have to have a sales amendment. You could just sell seeds direct to the province and away you go. Nobody was doing that. So I got some genetics from Jay over at Next Generation and some other stuff that we had, and we started running that and getting seeds ready. And then I met Ron Harrington, the crazy Captain Ron from Gold Hat Seeds. And he's come in and been genetics guy, and I've learned so much just from that. But yeah, we became essentially a genetics company to just start getting money coming in. We were working with incredibly stable genetics and stuff that I again learned some lessons through that as well. But yeah, the road just to get there. I'm going to be straight up. I lost my house, so like. We were over $1 million in before we even knew it, and that's how fast it goes. And that's before we had any plants even going out the door. So to have patient business partners and stuff. And then one of them, he said, you know what, I can't do this. I just can't. And so he exited, and we were so fortunate enough to have an amazing investor come in and buy 75% of the company. And and their goal is to just honestly get back to growing, like try to get them just growing good weed, just growing good stuff for the market and getting it out there. And that's what our goal is. And so
that's incredible. Like, I think that's the true story. Like, I saw you guys struggle. Like, I was right there with you guys and saw how hard you were putting in, and I saw you were putting everything you had into it. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I
you were
mean,
there.
it was painful to watch. It was painful to see that rule announcement come, and everybody who didn't have their facility built and their money raised was kind of like, gut shot. But you guys did it. You guys crawled forward, and I commend you. Coming in as a cultivator from a place where there's no oversight or zero regulation, what were some of the biggest challenges you had coming into that regulated environment? Like, what were the biggest frustrations or hurdles that you had to overcome with the Health Canada regulations?
So I was really lucky that I had a grower, Bill, who was the former head grower at Boaz. He came up and visited me because he had inspections. Boaz had already been in business for quite a while. They were one of the first small standard LPs to kind of get approved and stuff. So they were up and running, and he told me some stuff to look for and stuff. And back then, like, we couldn't foliar spray. So like when I first, like, I couldn't spray my plants with anything for a while, like using bamboo stakes. You weren't allowed to use any of that. Dealing with people who in the regulatory part who have never ever smoked cannabis, let alone grown it. Or you had people in there who were growers that weren't, I don't know. I talked to a couple of growers who seemed very jaded about their experience in either the legacy industry or the burgeoning legal market. So it was frustrating dealing with the regulatory part, understanding the taxes that get involved, like the taxes to me, like that just, the taxes we paid out. I was like, why are we paying? Like, I don't mind paying our fair share, but why are we paying this in this province? And why is this province so different than this? And learning how to deal with the different provinces. And I ran really clean grows, but I mean, I didn't wear beard nets in there. I didn't wear, I was clean, but I mean, we were farming, we were farmers. Like, they come in and they see some dirt on the floor. If you're not doing stuff, they're going to question it sometimes. It's really, bamboo. They try to question, why are you using bamboo? Why are you using this? Why can't you do this? And it's gotten better. I'm not going to lie. It's gotten better. But it's, the paperwork, probably the biggest thing, honestly, is the paperwork. Tracking plants, you got to track them from seed to sale, from just everything, just the paperwork. We spend literally 80% of our time cleaning, 10% doing paperwork, and 10% with the plants. Like, that's to keep up with the regulations and to be, GMP compliant or compliant. Some guys want to be European compliant, which is even heavier. So they're spending even more time cleaning and less time with their plants. So it's that kind of stuff. Yeah, I want to work with my plants. I don't want to be, punching in all this needless bullshit into, I had our last inspector, I had to explain why I was feeding my plants. I literally had to put into the notes every time why I'm feeding my plants. So I put in there in the beginning so they don't fucking die. I got in trouble for putting that in there. So now I put for vigorous health and continued growth. But you have to put that kind of stuff in there. Oh, what's Gaia Green 444? Well, it's fertilizer, like it's an amendment. It's, I don't know, stuff we stick in the soil and helps my plants grow. I don't know, like, fucking, what do you need to know that for? What do you need? Like, I have a problem with them knowing my proprietary soil mixture and how I feed the plants. They want all that info. I don't like that they have it because it's really none of their business. If I fail a test, great, come at me and ask me what I'm putting in there.
Yeah.
But if I'm not failing anything, it's none of your business what I'm doing. As long as I'm putting out safe product that people are enjoying, it shouldn't matter. Collect your taxes and let's move along. The amount of government oversight that we have is...
How much better has the oversight gotten from when you first were licensed to now?
It's gotten better. I'll give them that. It has gotten a bit better. They're a little more understanding, but it all depends on your inspector, and it also on their background, like where'd they come from. If they come from a pharmaceutical background, they're on they are on every little detail, which I get. That's their background, right? Whereas if they come from another one, they might just be a little more loosey-goose about stuff, and they're just kind of coming in and making sure, okay, that's good. You're following your SOPs. Oh, your docket, it says you got 100 plants in this room. There's 100 plants. Your record keeping's good. Adios. Like at the end of the day, I've learned that the CRA, they want to just know how many plants you have in that building, what you have for dry stuff, what you have coming down the pipe. They really don't care about anything else. It's kind of Health Canada where it's a lot of just the monotonous paperwork and the tracking and this and that and the other stuff. So it's gotten better though. I will say that our first inspection till our last has been, we only had 2 so far, and then one was virtual and it was pretty easy. The second one was like a deep audit where they go through your plant count. They went back to our very first plants that we had, and they wanted to, and because Kylie and I were so new, we didn't know all the stuff they wanted. Some of the stuff was in scribbles in a notebook and stuff, right? Like move this plant to here, because it was just me and her. And most times it was just me.
Yeah.
And honestly, when I was running 18 hours a day, I wrote stuff down, or I'd even forget some days. And so they wanted to go all the way back to those very beginning, like literally our first plants, they went back on the audit. And that was a 3-day audit. Now though, we've had all that stuff. I'm hoping we're good for a while, because we're putting stuff out, we're paying our taxes, we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing. So I'm hoping, honestly, that they go, and I want them to go, and this might irk some people, I want them to spend their time going to these large ACMPR grows that are medical, and make sure they're just having a clean facility if that's what they're doing in these giant things, because we have 2 in our area and they're nice. These guys did it the right way. And Health Canada came out there with 3 inspectors and an RCMP officer to check them out. But these guys did it right. But I've seen other ones where it's like, well, there shouldn't be anything called medical coming out of here, to be quite honest with you. So let's not pretend. But I'm a full supporter of the ACMPR and stuff. But just again, if we all have to play by these rules, then let's play by them. Because yeah, if it's medical on that end anyways, but we're not a medical, we're recreational. We still almost have to be a medically clean facility.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
and I don't mind it. I pass my test. We can pass our tests that way. We're clean. We don't have to worry, about other stuff coming down. But we run into stuff because we use living soil and stuff like that. So that fucks around with your microbials and stuff like that. Because I use insect frass, and I use worm castings. I use shit, right?
I've seen dirtier facilities in the US than I have in Canada in the legal system in multiple states. Canada has incredible high quality as far as what the standards are held. Now, the amount of paperwork that is applied to that system is ridiculous, and it really can pull the enjoyment out of being around those plants. It can sap that energy that you get a lot. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the cultivation methodology that you guys chose to go with at Parkland. Really interesting style, and what your thoughts were when you were setting it up, and what your experiences were running it.
So initially we got our pods. We were going to build grow rooms, and then the company that we just weren't comfortable with where the design was going for building grow rooms. So we ended up getting Delta 9 pods. But I didn't grow with HPS. They were kind of set up for an HPS or a heavy, like a hot LED kind of system. Their LED lights still needed to be completely air cooled with venting and stuff. And I didn't have anything like that. And so we kind of modded them up.
Prefab units from Delta 9, which is another company out of Manitoba.
Yeah. So they were Canada's 4th LP, I believe, and they grow in sea cans, retrofitted sea cans that they get one-time use sea cans. They epoxy them up. They put the mini splits in them. You get the racking. You get all this, and they sell a package to people who ever want to buy them. So for us, the decision was made as a group as well. We can get these rooms in here and get going. And it was the fact, because they're already Health Canada approved, we just wanted to get licensed as fast as we could. So we got these rooms in there. We knew we were good that way. But I noticed right away I had to make definite tweaks to how they were using them, to how I like to grow. So it was a drip to waste system in cocoa in the beginning. And that's what came with everything. And that's how it was growing at the time, was in cocoa. And so we did our first crops that way. And we didn't have any, I'm just not going to lie, we didn't have any money left to buy a lot of stuff. So I ended up, when I had problems with the lines, I started hand watering all the plants. And the canister's still there. There's a little Canadian Tire Rooster canister that you see, I think Mr. Canucks Grow even using his videos and shit. And I went around watering plants like that for, a long time. And with cocoa, it's got to stay wet. And so I was having a lot of issues with the lines. So I was going 2-3 times a day, going and watering the plants. And until I just said, fuck it, let's get some tables and just start doing flood and drain. And I just don't have time for this anymore. So we started that way. And kept some of the drain to waste tables or stuff going there. And then when the new ownership came in, they said, you know what, we like this. We really need to cut back on the watering time and stuff. Let's just get every room fitted with a table. So we got these giant Botanicare tables. And at the same time, they said, you know what, we want to go to more of a soil mixture as well. Can we start moving to the soil end? And so I started working on some stuff, and so we started doing an ebb and flow kind of system that we do with our stuff. It's still we still have a cocoa based soil. It's got cocoa in it to help the wicking and stuff like that. But we've started really working with soil and biochar and worm castings, just all that kind of stuff, and like crab meal,
You're top feeding with.
So we also top feed as well. So what I'll do is I'll flood the table.
Yeah.
And the table will flood to catch the bottom. It starts wicking, and then my staff will come along and do a top water at the same time, and then we drain the table out real quick. So what that does is I get the bottom done, the top. It helps keep the whole pot pretty stable, because if you let that top part dry out, it gets really acidic, especially if there's cocoa in there.
How large a pot?
We use 2-gallon pots right now. So we were in fabric pots for a while after the new ownership came in. I'm not a fan of them for small grows. Like, I just don't like the smaller fabric pots. I don't get the root base. I don't get the root density. Roots don't get as big. I like them when they just kind of wrap around that pot a little, and then they're allowed to pop, and then you flip them and they don't, I just had better luck with plastic pots. So we went back to a plastic pot. These last runs, we're getting already seeing a huge difference back to how I like it. So we do that. And then with the girls being able to go in there and do that top water, they get to see the plants really close. They're actually looking at the plant every time they go and they water it. They get to look up and down, eyes on the plant, which is really important. We drain the water out. Our soil is holding water for 3 to 4, depending on what stage they're at, 3 to 4 days. So it's cut down on our watering time. Plants are loving it. The biggest issue I had is some of the stuff that came in, some of our soil, the base, because we just mixed new stuff. It was fairly acidic, so I've had to work with it. And that's just part of reading your plants and letting them tell you the story going in, doing some testing on your soil, which is really important, just seeing where you're at. And, we found out we're a little on the acidic side here. And so we've really boosted plants. That's farming. That's what you have to do, especially when you're indoor and doing living soil, like starting to go to that living soil stuff. It's not as easy as a lot of people think indoor with living soil and that kind of base. So we're doing that stuff. And then, we use, while we do use, like I said, we use Gaia Green and we use some other amendments. We also use Ramo. I do use some salt still as, I'll call it an additive, I guess. And we've gotten fantastic results with it. And I like Ramo because it's a really clean, product, and he backs it up through testing and stuff. And they're just a great company to work with, great people. Recently, through you, I tried a vegan product for our plants. We just finished doing testing on that. I just smoked some of that today for the first time. It definitely had a different flavor than the other stuff. So we're gonna, like I said, we're getting the testing done on a side by side, because we grew them right next in the same room next to our regular feed. So we're gonna get the full testing done, full terpene, just the full panel, everything. It was really interesting to see that. So.
Yeah, shout out to Hobbies. I'm excited to see their product in more grows, because anything that can promote organic or veganic, that can be put through a fertigation line is to me
That was
huge.
That was huge for us, not leaving the residue and stuff like that, right? So, um, like I had found like the biggest problem I honestly had with my lines was wasn't even from a Ramo product, from another one I was using along with Ramo. Once I stopped using that, I found my lines were much cleaner. But I ran this stuff, and he told me, "You guys told me, it'll be really clean and this and that." Okay, yeah, like all right. And then it was clean. Like those lines, they did like just the regular quick clean, and they were ready to go, like no bullshit. So I was very impressed. What, like, again, I would again, we're gonna have to look at, obviously, when you're in a commercial space, the cost of using that product versus, but I think that the cost, that the benefit is really in it being such a clean product. I think where the testing will really show, like, that it was weird that the ash was a little bit darker, but I get that with some organic stuff. Like that's just natural for me to get the more darker stuff. But it just had a cleaner taste to it. I don't know what it was. And so we'll see. I'm going to have some other stuff just to kind of do the side by side, but I was really impressed by it. So, and I'm always open to new stuff like that. Like I'm just starting to learn Jadam and KNF and stuff. And that's why I hop onto your lives, especially when Professor Q is on there. And Ron, who, like I said, is kind of my mentor and guy I work with out here, who's from California, from Arcata. He does a lot of KNF out here in Alberta, and he does all his vegetables and stuff. He does everything. He grows all his stuff around in the same kind of area as his plants, and he does all his, his fucking cabbages and stuff. And some of it's just the most amazing tasting stuff. And so he's really teaching me a lot and passing me on that. And then I really want to get into genome. I just want to learn all that stuff. Listening to Harry and all those guys you have on, man, like I've learned so much this past 7 months, even just on that front. And I always want to learn new ways to grow, because if you stop learning in this, you've stopped growing. Like you're done. And I love learning. Like that's the best part about these platforms. So
the top six melt entries at Melting of the Heads were all grown with KNF practices. So it's like, what's going to start directing people to this is their quest for ultimate purity and experience. And that's where it's going to drive those consumers back, just as sort of proof is in the pudding when you have these competitions. But like on the other side of that, I think it's really interesting you being very comfortable running a very, very hybridized system. And I think that that's going to become more and more common as time goes on, where 5 years ago, you didn't put salt in with living soil, or you didn't mix living soil in with cocoa and call it, a living soil. Like, I think that bending these rules and just dialing in what's best for your system specifically, and not trying to adhere to sort of one style or thought process, is something that we're starting to see more of. And I think ultimately we will continue to see more of.
I really hope so. I mean, when we were at our past couple conferences, when I kind of explained what I'm doing, a couple other guys are like, "I'm doing that too." And I kind of didn't know if I should tell anybody.
Yeah,
like it was
probably whispered it. They probably
it was kind of like these quiet whispers at the tables and stuff, especially at the growers' luncheon I was at. They're like, he's like, "I'm doing that too." Whoa, like I'm just working what's working for us, and I'll bend a few rules, and I'll do some stuff. I don't care if a guy blasts on me for using some Ramo and stuff, because my people really like my product, and that's what I care about. And it's coming out clean. It's burning super clean. It's so at the end of the day, that's what's going to matter to me. I know for a lot of my life, whenever I was smoking a lot of stuff that wasn't mine, it was from a hydro setup, especially if it was Alberta. It was full hydro, 100%. There was no soil out here. So when you taste, my palate is getting so much better now that I've kind of just been so much more open. It's like, you taste that difference. Like I can see why those guys won. You taste the difference. I think the plant structure is different. I just think everything is different. We noticed like physical differences between the vegan fed to our regular fed stuff, like full on thicker stock.
Yeah.
There was definitely, like, they held the weight better. like I said, for the most part, they were 3 to 4 days, it seemed, ahead or more developed than the other stuff. There was always, they just seemed like they were almost like a week ahead. Yeah. I couldn't put my finger on it, but like I said, we'll get the testing done and go from there. But I love growing the way I grow. I don't mind changing stuff. I mean, I was full soil grow for a while, to full hydroponic, to doing cocoa and doing some other stuff, and even amending cocoa with some other shit, and just I play around. And if I meet other,
a lot of guys get locked in their way, and it's refreshing to kind of see that always learning attitude where you're changing things up.
I don't know everything. So if I learn something and I can apply it, and meeting a lot of the people I've been able to meet, some amazing, people through you and through other avenues of just going to conferences and stuff, and talking to people that know a lot more about certain, I don't want to, I'll go talk to Dr. Av Singh if I need to know stuff about soil. The man is and shout out to him. I can't express enough some of the amazing people I met. Being able to just text, to message Uncle Kev, and get a reply back, or, at these conferences, to tell people it does make a difference to go, because the people you meet out in the parking lot can change your life. They literally can. Frenchie Cannoli, I met him at the 2019 Grow Up, and our 2-hour conversation literally has changed my trajectory on where I'm going in this industry. Literally changing that 2-hour talk. And,
What was that talk? What was that talk?
Backstory. In January 2019, I lost my daughter to the opioid crisis, and I was really rattled. I got right back in the garden, and growing really just was saving me at the time. And Kylie said, "You know what? We're gonna go to Grow Up. There's some people I want you to meet." And that's where I met you for the first time face to face. I met Paul, met Matt Jerome. I came out of my closet literally came out of the growing closet that weekend. And I can't, literally, you guys, I've told people, you, Paul, you brought me in and just made me feel like such a part of the community. And then just seeing these rock stars, meeting Ed Rosenthal and smoking a joint with him, my knees buckled. I fanboyed hard that day. I'll never feel, I was like, holy shit. And then you look at me and say, hey, Kev's dropping some science over here. We just sat in that circle for whatever. And he was just talking outside. And I was just my mind was, and then he sat outside with me for a couple hours. But the next morning after I was talking to Kev for a while, I had showed up. It was really early at the conference, and Frenchie was there, and I was talking about what had happened to my daughter. We started just talking about. I told him I kind of was hoping there'd be a cultivar I could find to help with the opioid crisis. I said it was just something that come to me, and maybe we could, work on that as a community or whatever. And he pulled me aside. We talked for 2 hours, and he's like, the diesels, man, you got to get the diesels. They're the best ones that work for my friends. And he talked about his friends that he lost to the opioid crisis. We talked about my daughter, but then he talked about a lot of the genetics that to look for and what to look for. And he's like, you got to look for the myrcene and the caryophyllene. Those are the two. And you find them really high, and they really hit the same receptors. And he's like, come to my class today, and we'll talk about you'll hear me talk about the hash and how hash can, really help with that, and just everything. And that conference changed my life. And that talk, literally just him taking 2 hours of his time, this legend who knew me from nobody, 2 hours. And to the point where Av was getting people to come out because he was missing that. Frenchie was supposed to be speaking at that time. And Av remembers that, going you were the guy that kept him. I'm like, sorry, man, but that speaks to the community and the community I want to build here. And that, literally that talk, just him talking, and us, I think we smoked 3 or 4 joints during that talk. And it was all about how we can help people with this plant, and eventually how to, like I said, find the cultivar and work to start just saving people. So.
Yeah, bro. Frenchie was special. That conference was special. There was a lot of special shit that happened at that conference for sure. That was one of
a lot of it, man. And Matt and I look back. It was funny because at the last one we just sat, because there's a picture of me and Matt and you photobombing me in the back, and how different. I still obviously have my beard and stuff, but he's like, we were just coming into it then, and now look where just look where we're all doing now. And I sit back and I think about I have a picture hanging in my locker of me, you, and Matt that we took at Lyft, and like that's what I love about this industry is you meet people that want to help you on that journey. Matt's doing a big article to help me in this journey, finding this cultivar and stuff. And I want to work with other growers. And I have Sylvain over at Trois Rivières University in Quebec, doing all kinds of research on the genetics that we have coming out. And, through that, we found out we have a drought-resistant cultivar that's going to hopefully help Europe here, like one that can go without water for 28 days. A plant that takes up 30% less water than any other cultivar they've ever tested. And they've got a lot tested there. So he's like, Europe's going to eat this up. And it tests really, we're growing it right now. It's on the market through another company that bought all our stuff, but it's our cherry cake. It was a wedding cake crossed with cherry pie. And it's just they have done I think they've grown 100 different seeds out, and every seed showed that resilience to drought and this water retention that's just ridiculous, and how it just doesn't even need to pull up that much water. So if I can change that, even that part of the world with this kind of stuff, I'll do it too. This is what I love about it. It doesn't just come, for me, it was never about getting high. It's like, I obviously love that, but for me, it's this fucking plant can do so much more. And listening to guys like Johnny B talk about it, man, how can you not be inspired by those kind of people in this industry, right? So
shout out Johnny B. So what is Parkland going to continue to push forward in the genetic space? Or are they going to lean back into the commercial cultivation, or is it going to be a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B? What are the plans as you move forward?
So unfortunately, the analytics and numbers say that home growing is dropping now again in Canada. So we've bred some really nice stuff that I want to just work with. But Ron is he's starting his own nursery. So he'll be able to do all that kind of work on his own. We're going to focus on flower, and to a lesser degree, our hash. But I really want to focus on the flower. Obviously, I do want to focus on hash as well, but for me, that the flower has to be prime in order to have optimal hash, right? So we do have an amazing hash maker, Dustan from Resin Bros. Shout out to him. He loves his hash. He's from the East Coast. He grew up with hash, so hash is his life, and he loves his hash. So he's working really hard to get our hash to where it needs to be on the market, because the stuff that's out there, quite honestly, there's a lot of it that's not that good when it comes to your traditional hash, which a lot of people want right now. We were stunned to hear in Alberta, people don't want what you're smoking right now, Jameson. They don't. They want to have the old black, dark brown, Moroccan, whatever, gold seal. They want that kind of hash in their hands. And so you have to, as a company, figure out what you're going to do. We're going to focus on flower. We're going to work on growing the company. We're hoping to have a few contract grows. I'm going down to Calgary to look at a couple grows to start growing for us, because our Violator Kush, I can't grow it fast enough. So that's a good thing. And that's our 1-to-1 that's on the market. That's kind of just really surprised a lot of us, but it's going. It's at a unique high. It's a unique terp taste to it. It's just a unique cultivar on its own. So we're looking at growing that way. And then my hope is that the Parkland right now basically just becomes our processing hub, and we're in a new facility where we are more meant for Parkland was meant to grow seeds really well, but not our flower is great that comes out of there, but we would do a hell of a lot better in stuff that's people can grow in sea cans, but they're not meant to grow. You got to have the proper room and stuff. You can't have those narrow rooms like that. It's tough to grow in them. So we're looking to build a new renovate a facility, make it hopefully state of the art, if you want to call it that. But I want to bring the best flower I can to the market. There's a lot of good stuff out there. I was really proud to grow up to see all that competition in the flower competition. There was some good shit there. So there's good flower, and that makes me feel good. Yeah. I feel a lot of the problem, actually. I had a store the other day. I'm not going to say which one, but a store the other day sold me weed that was 3 years old. Wow. 3 years old. So sometimes it's not the producer that's the problem. It's people holding on to stock and then selling it. And people don't look at the date on, like a lot of people don't look at the package date. So this stuff was called something 19, and then the package date was January of 2020. So, but that stuff was growing. That the 19 part, I'm sure, in the name of the cultivar was the year it was grown.
Yeah.
In 2019.
Yeah.
And it's 2022, and you're selling me that, and it was the word. Like I one puff, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And then I looked, and I'm like, "This is like." So it's not always the producer. There's these problems too. I think, I don't think the consumer's that educated that yet. It's like they should be. Not all of them, anyways. There's some who for sure are, but there's people that walk in and I want the highest I want highest THC for the top dollar, and it's like, well,
I don't think the average Canadian consumer is nearly as educated as the average Californian consumer. I think the education level is a lot lower, and I think that the polls of what products are in demand in the legal space are from who the demographic and psychographic that are walking in the doors of the retailer store. So I think that there's a huge segment of the market that's left out, and unfortunately we're going to have to tooth and claw those consumers over almost one at a time by having brands like Rosin Heads or Kind Selections or Slurm Melts or Bubbleman brand, real legacy brands that stood for something and were producing cannabis and cannabis products long before it was cool to do so. So I think that that's when you're going to see that consumership just slowly come over. But the way that Canada has set up and evolved is so massively different than how the US has done it on a state level that it really didn't let a lot of the legacy transition in any kind of way. And I mean, in the early days, remember, they told us that if you had a legacy brand that you were operating, you better shut it down on October 16th, because on October 17th, if it's still operating, it's going to be null and void to be able to be used in the legal market. And now look at what's happening.
Oh yeah.
3 years later, and now brands like who are smart, who just said, you know what, that's neither here nor there, I'm going to hold out. The smartest move they could have made, because trying to establish these brands out of the ether from like a marketing table and hiring a marketing team, it doesn't carry any weight to the large consumership that you're looking for. And so I think that, we're starting to see more of the brain trust in Canada move in, and I'm very excited about that, and to support that going forward.
Yeah, me too. And the other thing that, I think the other thing holding a lot of people back, and this is where lobbying needs to happen, is just to get a security clearance.
Yeah.
To be a master grower. And then you have to get approved by provinces after that, right? So I'm one of the very few growers who's been approved by AGLC's new due diligence program, as well as Health Canada. Yeah. It's a serious, they do a deep dive, and I get why they do it. But if you're going to tell people we want you to come out of the legacy market, you better make it accessible to them. I mean, I know so many fucking guys that are some of the most amazing growers I know probably will never, their shit will never, ever, ever see the light of day in a legal store. And that's a shame. It's honestly a shame. There are guys out here that I know the moment if they could turn legal with their brand that they already have in the legacy market, they would crush me.
Yeah.
Just because they and I know them because I knew who they were when I was years ago. It's not fair, and I don't like it. I want those guys to be in here because they prop up everything. More people, consumers will. Well, they're there now. I'll go there because we've seen it happen. We've seen it happen. Yeah. Let's. I hope one day to be able to go into a store and get a Kind cart.
Oh yeah, And it's
You know
gonna
what I mean? Like
happen.
that's a dream. That's a dream for, honestly, because I fucking love his products,
Mhm.
right? Like so I want to support him,
Yeah.
and I'll do it however I can. But I would love to see some of these people shit in the stores, and it's a shame it's not, because I know guys that have just unreal shit.
Mhm.
I sit there and I'm like, man, I wish this was there, because people would buy this in a heartbeat and start changing their mind about some of this other shit they're smoking right now. And
Yeah.
yeah, it just, there's a lot that needs to be done, but I look at
Where,
it like we're a baby. We're just shitting our pants still as an industry. So
where do you think the biggest pinch point or issue lies in the current Canadian regulation or regime?
it's gonna sound fucked up. Well, I think there's a lack of processing that's going on. There's a lot of people just sitting on shit. There's a lack of good processing that hurts. But on the regulatory side, um, there's too many grows, man. There's too many grows. They're allowing too many to come in just because they're collecting their money on from, and it's not helping. It really doesn't help. Some of us are saying, hey, just put them, like, just hold a bit. You go. All you need to do is look at what happened in certain states when they just started handing out licenses willy nilly, and what happens, and how much bulk cannabis do we have sitting right now that's just locked up, rotting away. We have so much of it. It's the same shit that's happened, and nobody learned, though. Like, nobody's bothered to check out down there to, like, just, oh, they made those mistakes. Yeah, let's not make those. I mean, let's be real. When Mexico decided to go legal, they said, let's not do what Canada did. Like, I mean, that should have said something to people. So that's the, like, yeah, they're not letting the right people in, I guess, is what I should say. There's some people that should be in this industry, and they've made it so they can. They're letting the wrong ones in. And so for me, that's a problem. And that's a regulatory one. But, on the other end, on the commercial end, we just don't have enough good processors either. There's just not enough people that have just do good. I mean, there's a few, but they're few and far between, and we need more. And that's what we're going to start focusing on, I think, is our processing end of it, because they got some great products, just not being processed the right way, or it's not being processed at all, just sitting there rotting.
Understanding how to handle material is only comes from years of experience.
Yeah.
And that experience is very rare to have from the legacy space without a record, because that means that you're existing in $1 million facilities where you're tracking environmentals so that you're able to make these observations and then learn from them. Because in most cultivation settings, in ACMPR or legacy settings, the environmentals aren't being recorded. So you're breathing rarefied air if you actually can correlate environmentals and track things and make those and learn from those observations. So I think that the government has almost done this purposefully to create exactly what's happening in California, which is just a fast forward of Canada, which is an implosion and a complete decimation of all small farmers.
Yeah.
There's a statistic, I'm not gonna cite it or anything I read because it's probably incorrect, but I heard that it was a single digit that is projected to survive out of all the legacy farms in Humboldt County. So Trinity, Mendocino, or sorry,
Yeah.
in Emerald Triangle. So Trinity, Mendocino, and Humboldt.
Yeah.
And I think last time I heard Jodri said there's around 45,000 farms. So what's ending up happening is that everybody can come in and pay their licensing fee. And then we're going to see who has the biggest pockets. And those 5 biggest pockets guys who can survive the drought are going to drink from the well when the drought's over. But the drought is going to dry out a lot of people. And that's a shame, but I'm pretty sure we can see that happened in big alcohol. Like when I was growing up as a kid, there were no heady beers. There were no like, oh, like I only drink IP, like, same with you. There were 6 beer and, you got to choose and sometimes you got 8, but they were all mass produced and you were happy about it. And so I think that it's going to take time for that that like industry to actually like set in mainstream society, whereas it's already ingrained in this counterculture. Whereas with alcohol, we didn't see this, like, you know, when alcohol was during Prohibition, like the quality wasn't incredible, like that so much better, and it didn't advance so many years that it needed to kind of, that when legalization came back, that it needed to catch back up. Like, I think that that's the issue that we're seeing, is we've got a completely sophisticated market and then the overall a very unsophisticated market. And so it's going to take that evolution to go, which is an absolute shame, because I mean, we're talking about our industry and the way people have fed their families for many, many years. So
yeah, it's scary. Like, I mean, there's some provinces, the problem is how we've done, like, there should really just be either, well, it just needs to be one rule across the board, I think. Like, it's made, like in BC, they're opening up farm gate right away, which is, I guess, great. I hope it works out. I really do. But they also pulled farm gate a little while ago, and people had to fight to get that back. You know, so like, and in Alberta, we have an election coming up here, and if people don't think that cannabis should be an issue, they're kidding themselves. The amount of taxes that our industry pays into the coffers of this province, we pay more in Alberta than I think we're second behind Ontario for the tax rate, and I think we actually might have just overtaken them. But either way, it's the cost of doing business in the provinces, the amount of insurance you have to get. Like, people do not understand it. And I wish they did, but they don't want to hear it at the end of the day either. That's your problem. You're the producer. I don't give a shit. Well, you should, because my company's created 11 new jobs in the last year for this economy. You know what I mean? Like, and times are tough. And our parent company, recently, just to help out like all the families working for the company, they gave everybody $1,000 in gift certificates to a grocery store, so we could, like, just to help. Like, that's the kind of, but like, it's amazing to have that support and shit. But you have these other, I know there's other growers that are about to close their doors, and it kills me inside. And so what I'm hoping is they come around and they change some of these rules, like in Alberta here, so we can have farm gate. I would love to be able to people come in and smoke a sample, or could be able to come in and take a sample. You want to buy a clone from me? Cool. Here, here's my cuts. I want it, and I'll just pay my taxes on the side. I wish it at farmers markets, that true, like, farmers, like, if you're able to come with a COA and the proper stuff, you should be able to open a booth and just sell at a farmers market. I don't care. I really don't. Like, I just want the plant to be accessible to as many people as possible. And I think the government is missing that. Like, they are missing out on certain people. In Alberta, for a while, they had ads out telling people not to smoke cannabis until they're 25. But they certainly weren't telling people that for alcohol. And it's the same agency running both. So that really bothered me. And since then, it's kind of, they've toned that down. But that's insane that you're going to try to tell 7 years of people not to have a product that is better for them than the other product. You're actually telling them, just take 1 day off a week. Take one dry day. And I'm like, take a dry day? And now you're telling people to wait till they're 25, like, because the developing brain, you guys like that. So stop. You guys are Alberta could have been awesome, and maybe it will be again when it comes to cannabis, but it should be an issue people think about in any election right now, especially down in the States. Like, federal, if it goes federal, that's game changing for everybody. It really will be. So
I feel like that's the only time that the laws are really going to dramatically change quickly in Canada, is that when our big brother says it's okay, that it's okay. Because I mean, like, I still get treated like a second-class citizen in any type of banking setting, because the banks in Canada know that I'm affiliated with legal cannabis. And so, and you know, it's just, I really think that it's going to take federal legalization in the US for everything in Canada to just be like, oh, you know what? Metallic colors, go for it. You know, fancy packaging, no problem.
Yeah.
Different fonts, yeah. Celebrity endorsements, go for it. Because until then, it's just it's not Canada hasn't been comfortable enough to take a commanding lead to say, okay, well, let's establish a market. Like, how do you bring in the legacy component that is currently constitutes a large purchasing portion of the market that's not being realized by the legalized space? Look at the packaging that is in the legacy space. It's all fancy metallic mylars with stickers everywhere and eye-catching. And I'm not saying it needs to appeal to children, but it needs to appeal to your eye. I mean, it's human psychology. It's everything in our whole industry, in our whole society is set to be appealing, eye-catching branding to certain target demographics, and the limitations that are only now slowly being lifted. But the issues are that they aren't being lifted; they're being tested, and it's the company that is willing to take the financial risk to see if they're going to get any backlash, and then when they touch the stove and they don't get burned, then they go, oh, this we can touch this stove, and then everybody behind them touches the stove. But that limits the ability for the small craft individual to get in front of any type of curve, because that craft individual is not going to take that financial risk that is stepping out, because the Canadian government isn't going to go out and change the rules or tell you can't, you cannot, or you can do something that you previously could not. They're just no longer going to enforce it. Like, you can't give liquor reps can't give liquor store managers hockey tickets. It happens every fucking day. Like, and it's not something that's hush hush. Samples of alcohol are given out very liberally. Like, and so it's just, it's this double standard that creates a huge issue that, if all the rules in alcohol were being enforced to the level that they're being enforced in cannabis, alcohol people would be up in arms complaining. And those are pretty realistic rules.
Like I said, because my marketing is background, or my background is in marketing. I when I got into cannabis, I looked at Kylie and I said, I'm not doing the marketing. Like, this is insane. Like, I shouldn't be spending my time looking for loopholes in the legislation. I should be spending time growing an awesome fucking product. And I was spending time trying to find ways to beat the government at their own game when it came to like showing our logo. For the longest time, your logo, and I'd have to double check, but it still might be the rule. Your logo can only be a certain size. Like, it cannot, like, I know for a while.
The warning symbol. So the size of your warning symbol and the size of your logo have to correlate. So if you want a big logo, no problem. You got to have enough logo. You got to have enough for a warning symbol the same size, and it's got to fit on your product along with all this other warning information, along with claims, like outlandish claims about cannabis being addictive, and 1 in 3 people become addicted to cannabis, and just wild things. But it's the rules we're given. We're playing within them. We're blessed to be doing something that if we didn't grow up in this generation we wouldn't be able to do. But like, what's your outlook? Like, are you optimistic over the next 3 years in Canada, or do you feel like it's batten down the hatches and hold on?
So I think we're coming closer to the bottom than some people think. Like, I think we're going to bottom out early 2023. Like, that's like, you're going to see a lot of people shutting doors or acquisitions, that kind of stuff. I think because they're in the middle of they just started the review again of the Cannabis Act. I think if the right people speak up, if the right people listen, the industry is going to be okay. But it's going to come down to some give and take. They're going to have to open up have some leniency for some of these amazing people to come into the industry. And then those people coming into the industry are going to have to be able to take some of the rules that are going to be put upon them. Like you said, it's going to take one person to fight back on, push. It's always pushing the envelope when it comes to this. And you see what Health Canada does, right? And then you go from there. And so it will take, one of us to go out and just get a celebrity to, or something, just do something that's not allowed and just see what they do and see what the fine is, or see, hey, well, we're going to take that to court then, because we don't think, because, you guys are double standard with what like you said, the alcohol. Like I walk into a liquor store and I have people trying to hand me free samples of alcohol that I'm supposed to turn around and hop right back into my car and drive away right after.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, all right. But then I should be able, not that I'm saying it's right, but I should be able to have people come up and say, well, here's a chunk of hash for you to throw in your pipe later, or here's a bud, go home and smoke it later and come back if you like it. We're in this store. Here's our shit right here, or be able to hand them, like you said, the packaging, like when I went to, I keep talking about conferences and stuff, but I met Eric there, Eric Weiss in Victoria there, and he had those rosin drinks and his stuff, the Terpy Club, like his stuff, like the packaging, like playing off of the this thing of ours, the drink, right? Like playing off of the mob stuff. Like I love that, and just the way they did all of the that's awesome. You would never get away with that here. I hope they lift the limits, because you know what? I really hate that I have to drink 5 of these to really get what I got out of half of one of Eric's drinks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm sure that's going to change a bit, and I hope it does. I think products are getting better. Like I said, from the first grow up I went to this year, the flower is like 500 times better.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that I saw never existed 3 years ago that I saw this year's book.
What's three of the most impressive cultivars that you've seen from other growers other than yourself? Are there any that stand out, or are they all from your grow? Like what are the
No. I love I don't know the name of it. There was some guys out there from Atlantic, I think, that from Newfoundland there. They had some amazing stuff, right? Like who else? Natasha, when she was at Alberta Bud, their 24 karat was there. That was some really nice stuff they had there. Adrian down at Northside, he's got a really nice alien cookie. It's actually really nice. I like that. But some of the, I didn't know. I didn't know some of this. I didn't know who some of the guys were. Then those entries, and I mean, some of it, it was just because they. Matt or Claude or whoever would hand me, they'd hand me the test joints, right? That they, from all the competitors and stuff. And some of that stuff, man, like the one that won, I knew it was going to win.
Yeah.
Right away. It just had that old school, to me, it was like kind of that tangy taste. I don't know what it was, but I knew it was going to win. I was like, that's the winner. It's not mine, but I know it's going to win. And I'm okay with it. There was some amazing stuff there, and I'm proud to have been in that same group, because I mean, that just shows me we're all working, towards that end goal of having some really nice shit in the marketplace. So,
I mean, we have to promote competition. Like that needs to be a part of it. Like that's something I'm very, very ardent on. We need to have more competitions, different kind of competitions.
Yeah.
We need to compete in different ways and understand that it's like, hey, he was the best that day. That's just cool. It's just like a cool memory, and you were the best that day, and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna get you. And that's how it needs to be. This friendly competitive, because that's how we really get better and really dive in. And then we use certificates of analysis of the winning to really learn, because that's
exactly.
So
exactly, brother.
More stuff like having more competitions, and I really commend Grow Up for doing the first I guess legal one, and it was all in all they did pretty good job. So I was pretty impressed with it overall, as I know it's not easy to throw those competitions.
No, and I think what impressed me was there was lots of judges, which was nice. You heard you could hear them talking. I think I would kind of do it a little different, but I mean, you learn with these things, right? But in talking to people at that event, and then at Hall of Flowers and stuff, a couple of people I ran into there's this growing thing of having cups, or even like for me, I would turn them into wrestling belts. I'd hand out like a wrestling belt for, Flower. So like, yeah, you have to fucking hold the belt up plus a cup. I don't really care. But this year I was very fortunate enough to pick up, Parkland was able to pick up craft producer of the year, but that to me is not the important. Cup is important to me. The cups, that competition on that day, like you said, like, okay, I'm going to bring my flower versus your flower right here, right now. Let's do it. You beat me, great, man. But now I'm going to push myself to come back, because what happened at Grow Up in 2019 is I smoked flower that there's another one that changed from Strawberry Jerry. I'll always tell you, man, like that Strawberry Jerry you had, I will never forget it. And I was like, okay, this is where shit's going to be going. I need to up my game. I came back and looked Kylie and I said, that's the best place you ever took me to, because I know really what's going to be coming out there on the market. This was obviously just as legalization. I guess it was, just right as it was, happened. So, it was that was crazy to me, and so, I love the competition aspect of it, and I think we're going to see more cups. I talked to some guys, and that's your loophole right now to promote your company. You get a third party to invite you, and they can promote everything all they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I don't know if you talked to a guy named Julian there, but he has been working with all of the provinces since 2017 on getting each cup into a province, like being able to like do a legal cup in the province, and he's got all the provinces on board now.
Awesome.
So that's the kind of stuff we need to. I'll show up to cups all day long. The problem is some people said, well, if you have too many cups, people aren't going to travel to them all. Well, you can have local cups, and then you can just keep going from there. Like I would love to.
It's happening with hash. I mean, like 3 years ago, there were no hash events. This year, there's so many. So
and it's amazing.
Shout out to all of them. Like there's absolutely no bad blood between Melting of the Heads and any other hash event, and Legends of the Hash is going on, and huge support. Like that's the OG event. Shout out to Marcus and Skunkman Sam and all those people. But like we're seeing it in hash and in solventless, where there's going to be a point where there's going to be too many events very soon, and that's okay, because a little bit of friendly competition, people start voting with their dollars and go, you know what, so-and-so's event was actually more organized and kind of followed the schedule, and so-and-so's event didn't. And so I might not go to so-and-so's event again, but I will go to this event. And that's when you get the quality. And so I think that we're going to start seeing that hopefully on the legal side in the legal competitions, and hopefully seeing more personalities come out in Canada. Like I always wondered why we didn't have like an exotic mic of Canada, like why we didn't have breeders up here that were boisterous and loud and threw their weight around. And like other than one or two exceptions, and shout out to breeder Steve and some of the OGs that were out there, but like we didn't have those personalities in the same way. And I think it would be so cool to start to have that, because I don't want to I want Canada to have its own culture, like its own thing, it be its own coast, so to speak. And so like I think that we need to study and learn and understand what's going on in these other markets, but become confident enough up here that we've got everything we need to kind of run in our own direction, and in 10 years have a fully respectable whole thing up here, where guys down in the Bay are being like, yo, those cats up there are like doing some different things, and like, it's not our thing and we're not about it, but like respect to them, and it's kind of cool over there. Like, I mean, we're seeing Piff and all these equatorials become popular again. Like, yo, I want the church, I want like all this stuff that's 11 to 13 weeks that is gonna start becoming more popular again. And those, I just think that Canada's been following trends for a while, and we need to get to a point where we feel comfortable enough to start heading in our own direction, and maybe not just running gelatos and jealousies and things like that. And no disrespect to anybody running gelatos and jealousies, they're fucking awesome.
No, it's you're right. We need to I think we turned some heads of your American friends that came up and were judging in the hash competition. I think they
100%.
even said that some people have been sleeping on us. So, like I know Canada's like we have an amazing, core set. We just need to get it all together, and it's about building that culture. Like when I go out to BC and go to the island especially and stuff, there's a culture that's there because it's been there for years and years and years. I didn't have that culture over here in Alberta. I'd like to build that culture. I'd like to build one coast to coast to make it the Canada culture.
Yeah.
We got some pockets that grow some real different stuff. You go to Ontario, they grow totally different than guys that grow in BC or guys that grow in Alberta or Quebec or in the Maritimes. Start getting like we got some killer shit up here. Start figuring out our flavors. I think we have our own flavors that it's just I think we're
I know Atlantic Canada's got their shit on lock because they didn't take in. They're still working with stuff their grandpa worked with. So like they've got some old hardy outdoor, but like I think that we need to take the current flavors and get some personalities up here in Canada who are breeding in with intention in direction. And then we know as those Canadian crew guys are breeding this way, the same way people go, oh, I know Exotic Mike does this kind of thing. Masonic works like this, and TB's at Little Lake Valley, his programs like this. And then you as an individual can align yourself with those people. But I think like we as Canadians often are caught just watching Americans. And I think that needs to stop. I think that we go, okay, well, and especially like you said, with like Mission Hill, shout out Adam and Hannah coming up to grow up and being like, this hash is fire. We're actually blown away. Like there are so much talented makers and growers up here. And, we're just not making a lot of noise about it. And I think that we need to do a better job kind of becoming comfortable being established that we do have stuff going on up here. Like if you go down to the US and you see some of these facilities, you go, holy shit, the facilities in Canada are crazy. You know what I mean? Like like we said before, the standards are different. So I want to see more of a unique culture established, especially what has to do with genetics as it pertains to that. So it's really cool what you guys are doing and really cool what I'm sure a lot of people are doing, but I want to see more of a Canadian directional breeding program.
For sure. And I think there's Ron, obviously, who I've mentioned a few times, Captain Ron, he's doing a lot of stuff he's an American, but he's doing Canadian focused stuff, like really like Alberta focused stuff, even for here to grow out. Like we have our auto flowers we've been working on for 2 years. They're like 140 days or whatever. They're just finishing right now. They're gorgeous. Like these things are huge. They're massive, and you could probably grow really nice ones outdoors here. He throws river water on them. He does a bunch of stuff. He's had some of his own stuff he's been running for years. And do we have some misses here and there? You bet we do. That's part of breeding. But Ron grew up in that culture in California, like being from Arcata and stuff. And he used to like supply all the beautiful flowers to Las Vegas. Like that's what the other kind of growing. And then he owned a Christmas tree farm. Like he's like, the man's been all over the map with shit. And then like having events like the Unicorn Cup, where you have like these fireside chats. And next year I'm going to be there for sure, 100%. But that's the kind of stuff that helps grow this culture. And I was in BC. But you start like grow ups they're coming to Edmonton next year. Right, they're going to move. They start moving these shows around and don't just have it out east in Toronto and in Vancouver. Like that's great but Edmonton hasn't had anything in 4 years in terms of a show. Hempfest was the last one in 2018. Yeah. So you have, and I told you have something that's more outdoor. You have some booths that are outside that can have consumption while you're talking to the vendor and stuff. Like make it a little more Spanibusy or something. I don't know. Just we gotta just change it up a little bit and start making it a little less corporate-y government like run feel and just start fucking running. Like my kid, I teach my youngest son, who's a little grower at 7 years old, Grady. I teach him who grow, like he knows who Ed Rosenthal is. He knows who Exotic Mike is. He laughs at Exotic Mike sunglasses. I mean, Masonic the other day, he, whenever you're, there's Masonic, or there's T, there's T right there talking to Jameson, oh, Jameson, that's how it starts. We got to get kids involved. And I'm not saying get your kids baked, get them involved in the culture and growing. And
no, but make it like sports. Like, I mean, this
make it all
idolization of sports teams, like, is so ingrained in our culture. Well, why not idolize a grower? Why not idolize a hash maker? And when that grower or that hash maker gets fired or moves from this brand to that brand, and you hear about that, why don't you go and be like, oh, well, I like his hash, and so I want to go see what he's doing over here with these flavors, like, or with this access. And that's what I want to champion, is that, like, hey, as much as and everybody's a rock star in their own chosen field, but in the field that I'm focused on, which is cannabis, I think that these people need to be championed more than the presidents, CEOs, or hype men like myself. You know what I mean? Like, I've grown a lot of weed and made a lot of hash, but like, I have much better success, like shining the light on people that I truly think are craftsmen. And so I hope to build towards that future where people are voting with their dollars based on who's in the grow room or who's in the washroom, then rather than like what the brand is or who the CEO is. But I think I think genetics is going to be interesting. What are your thoughts on autos? Like, do you feel like the resin that they produce is completely at the same level of quality and possibility as far as compared to a photo?
I don't think it's there yet, but I think it's come along. Like Ron washed some stuff. I was pretty impressed, actually. I was like, man, that's not bad. Like, it's not bad. Like, but they're almost not even, we don't even know if we should even call them autos. They're almost like a fast flower. They just trigger kind of early. Like, I know there's a guy in BC that's working on one called the Quickening. It's his plant that kind of takes off pretty quick and shit, right? So, but it's got the auto base to it.
They just trigger at a shorter.
So like in Alberta, we have twilight here, right? And it fucks if you can't like the sun's up for a while. Comes sun, like right now is your shit wouldn't even be done right now if you were to try to do anything. So I think autos have their place, and I think if you're going to do a big, I think it's getting close. Like some of the stuff Ron's done, and I've seen some other stuff. It's getting pretty nice. So for us up here, you want to do a big outdoor and get just a big mass production and make sure it finishes on time. That's almost what you're forced to do if you're not in a greenhouse with light depth. Like, I mean, you just not in our part of the world, and where Ron lives, these autos they're. I can't I'll send you some pictures later. They're unbelievable. Ed Rosenthal saw them and was like, that's fucking unreal. Like, it's a little bit longer, but we were focusing on doing stuff that's Canadian, that'll stand up to our weather up here. And that's what kind of Ron and I are working on. And then obviously I have my side project of finding that cultivar for the opioid crisis, but I really think Canada can come. Like, there's some amazing stuff. The guys from Sacred that came out, with their frosted fruitcake, that was really good. I loved it, man. I'm smoking some right now. Yeah. Like, I liked it. I really liked it. I've gotten some great stuff through Paul Martin, who's doing some amazing work on his own at Scallywag. Paul's an amazing guy that
shut up, Paul.
Just always tinkering and always playing, and there's a lot of guys that want to do that stuff, and I think it's just a matter of us all connecting, to be quite honest. And that's, I mean, I will
need to get in a room together, and it's hard.
It's hard, but I think having doing things like what you do on Instagram, right? Like, I'll hop on and I'll watch, and I'm learning stuff from guys like, and then I'll hop on when Johnny B's up on having one, or even now Harry down in States. I'm learning stuff through just even watching one person through you, right? So I'm telling my staff, and he goes, you want to learn, hop on lives when you see them come up. even if you don't know the person, hop on there or watch them when they're done if you don't get a chance. Like if you see that somebody put one up, it probably had some good content. And if you don't have to watch, you can just listen to it in the background. Most of the time, honestly, I'm missing probably half the people saying or asking questions to me or whatever to you. Like, but I have you on in the background and I'm constantly listening, like, and then hearing about, like auctions and stuff where you can go get some seeds for some of these guys, right? Like, and then you bring that stuff up here and you start playing with it and other stuff, right? But up here, I think Canadians, for the most part, we're going to work on some stuff. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we're really going to, if we all can get in that room together, like you said, I think we could really make some fucking magic. I really do. And I'm not, my brother's the big hash guy, always has been, has made all the hash through my stuff. And I'm getting into hash more and more now. And man, like just doing dabs and stuff and opening my eyes to that. And I mean, we've talked about, I don't want carts to be the future of what, you're doing. Right. But I get where they are and why they're, this has even gotten so much better.
It's going to be a huge part,
Right. So you got to, it's just part of it. So I am learning more and more about that end of it. So I will sit here and listen, about a hashtag machine or the Osprey, right? There's the Osprey. Is that what the other one is? See, so you gotta learn
hashtag Axis,
right? So like I'm trying to learn about all that because for me, I want to create cultivars that are specific to I want to focus on one thing, but I want other guys like I want a Canadian that's focusing on hash genetics, like a Canadian that's doing a hash flake and truly like looking for that stuff. And other people, like I want to work on a cultivar that works for transportation, one that can actually get like the trichomes stand up to being packaged for quite a while. That guy you had on last night, I didn't catch his name. He had the beard, was talking about how he did his dry and listening to him talk about how he does his stuff and how they're finding out like stuff can last a year if it's like, okay, cool, what did you grow to do that? I want to find that out because maybe there's something to the structure of that plant that's letting it sit for a year and not breaking down as fast. Or that's the kind of stuff I'm really looking to get into for myself. I'm happily that I've done a lot of the stuff I set out to do when it came to like I wanted to get a product into the legal store. I was able to go to a store and buy my own shit. Like that was a trip for me. It was kind of funny seeing my stuff in a store and then
that would have not been your like proudest moment. Like if there was one moment, was that the moment that was made it all?
That moment and the day we were acquired, I was able to pay back my parents for all the hard work and shit. Like my parents, they said, we can't help you financially through the grow when you're setting it up, but we'll take care of the boys. We'll do everything else that we can. We'll get you food if you need it. We'll do whatever it takes to help you that way. And they did. And so, but literally probably the two things were like going to a store and then handing my dad. I remember throwing him the joint we were parked in two different vehicles and I threw him a set of pre-rolls through the window and he's like, what the fuck is that? And I said, they're in stores, Dad. They're and the look on his face was like, you fucking did it. And so my dad's one of those dads that doesn't tell you he's proud of you a lot. You just kind of know, but he doesn't say it, but he said it. And and so that, my just being able to, but buying that product was pretty big, man. Cause it was just my goal. I just, if I could just get it into stores and do that. And now my next goal, honestly, is to win cups. That's my next, it's great. We won, but I want to win a cup. Like I want to go back next year, grow up, and I want to take that. I want my name to be on that trophy. Yeah. And then I'll go after, hopefully there's 3 more cups in that meantime. I'll enter every one of them.
And I mean, people need to take the passion that some have shown for resin and apply that to flower. And there needs to be a flower champion and a flower cup. And, you see people like in New York doing cups where they're judged based on a blunt wrap and how the flower stands up in tobacco. And, not for me, but if you get these competitions where you have fiercely passionate people about it, that's when you're going to bring together those people and better innovation happens. Like, I mean, that's what I'm seeing with Resin and with the solventless community. And I think we're going to continue to see that. Like, we definitely need to have more cups, and that's super cool that's something you're focused on, because if we can build a friendly competitive culture, I think that really is going to breed a ton of innovation and movement forward.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like I said, when I was able to smoke some other growers' stuff, that just pushes. Like, I mean, I was like, damn, okay, like, all right, it's on. Like, okay, it's gonna be friendly, right? I love your shit, man. And most growers are pretty open, at least I find in Canada, to be pretty open to sharing stuff, and that's awesome. And I think you guys, with your hash and stuff, you guys have definitely become more of a. You guys have overtaken us in terms of that what you guys are doing, at least from what I'm seeing. Like, there's not a lot of stuff up here in Canada like what you guys are doing.
No,
like,
no,
and so it's awesome. I love it. It's like this refined, like watching you guys open your jars and seeing that stuff. Like, just seeing that when we went over to that birthday party when we went to Ted's birthday party, and seeing the different jars, and then when Eric pulled out that giant jar and that papaya, and he's like, smell it. I wanted to take a spoon and just eat it because it smelled just like that. That to me is those smells that this plant can produce. Like, you're kidding me. This plant produced that, something that my mom used to think was fucking skunk or this garbage smelling. Like, man, the stuff that we're getting now. And
wow.
we just did a 39 cultivar room. I was just trying to just do a quick hunt on some stuff for next year and some stuff, and some of the flavors that, like, there's one, man, it was like this black licorice on the end and then root beer on the way out. Like, I couldn't explain. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, it was just unbelievable, some of the flavors we're getting, and I love that. That's part of the fun right now. It's these flavors that are coming out. So to your point, I think in Canada we just really push it, that we do have some really amazing flavors. Like, I was able to taste. I'm pretty sure you gave me the fruit joy when I had that dab, and I mean, the taste. Like, I mean, man, come on. So, like, that's what gets me into this, because I'm a taste guy, and that's like, I'm not into, like, the high thing is for some people just to get high. I'm in this for that whole experience, the taste. I'll sit back and smoke a giant joint if it tastes good the whole way. Like, I'll sit there and get plastered on it if it tastes delicious, man. Like,
Yeah.
it's
No,
just,
I think, like, just having people like you and refining those skills and understanding, like, to me, that there's so much complexity in post-harvest processes and the dry and cure, kind of like we touched on, like, compared to if you do things right in about 30 minutes, you can get this thing into the freezer and take a breath, and you pretty much have got it locked in as long as you follow the right SOPs. And that's a lot less stress for me than, you literally have your entire, room every second is exposed into potential, it's either getting better or worse. It's it's so it's going in one direction or not every second of every moment. So
100%.
I think that we need to have more people championing flower in the same way, myself and others are championing resin, where, I've said it before and kind of gotten laughed at, where people need to breed towards combustion the same way that we're breeding towards and selecting towards solventless extraction. People go, well, we've been doing that for years. Well, okay, smokability maybe, but like you said, glands that don't separate from the head that you could throw against a wall and pick back up and put under a microscope and shake around and then bust up, and then they're all in that fucking joint. Like, that is something that I don't think people are hunting for, and I think that's something worth hunting for. So
110%. That's innovation, man. I want to go, like, I hate to use the old Gretzky cliche, but he said you want to go to where the puck is going and not where it's been. And so that's what we're trying to do, at least. And I know a lot of other guys are, and it's awesome. So it's a matter of us collaborating and not. I want all of us to share. Like, I mean, I'm a sharing kind of guy. So I mean, I like to. That's why I love seeing when I get these lives from all you different cats, because it's just, I learned so much shit. And even if it's just a quick one, and just you just find out just the craziest stuff, and going to these conferences, and hopefully these cups overtake the conferences. To be honest with you, I want the cups to be the shining star, because you get to hang around and you just get to just soak in so much shit. I mean,
Well,
I get an Airbnb. Sorry.
that's what happened in California, right? Like you had these big chalice, you had like the very large emerald chalice, and then all the high times, and then those got sort of very corporatized, and now they've fractured into smaller niche, more grassroots conferences. And so, I'd very much like to see that same thing. And there's a lot of pomp that's very unnecessary and unneeded to a lot of these larger conferences that are happening in Canada. And I think that if you had more specialized, okay, this is a conference for extractors, and the sponsorship positions are less money, the tickets are less money, there's less people in the room, but everybody there wants to be there for extraction purposes, or this conference is for cultivators, kind of like Grow Up does it. I think that having more specialized niche conferences that are smaller but more curated is going to be the future, and I'm fucking for that. So
I hope that's what happens, because honestly, there's a saturation of the conferences, and I want to go to as many as I can, but at the end of the day, if they don't need to be in such giant venues. You don't have to have half the stuff there that you do. I want to go to them to learn. I don't I learn a fuck ton out in the pit, but some of those classes that we were just talking about, dry and cure, I went to a class called How to Lose Your Crop in 10 Days. And it was all about your first 10 days of your dry and your first 10 days of your dry. And we're getting into it. And some guys got really mad at the presenter at Av, and I have it recorded. And they're like, we thought this was about, during your grow. And she's like, you can grow, whatever, but yeah, you can grow the most amazing stuff, but you can lose it the moment you fuck up your dry.
Oh yeah.
And so she went into a bunch of stuff, and I've learned that 2-hour course, man, and that was the one that grew up in December. That shit changed a lot. And I talked to her for another hour afterwards, and I've changed how I do we changed how we dried after that. We did a bunch, and the results were amazing. So when in the old days in the legacy market, we had to get that stuff dried and out the door pretty damn quick because you didn't want it stinking up. So I mean, we lost. I don't know how many monoterpenes we would just everything would just be gone, but it was dried out the door and still stunk, but out the door. Now we can take a bit more time and stuff. And so, she taught me, going into your dry the first couple of days, don't be afraid to have it a little more humid, a little more wet, so you're not losing that. And then bring her down the first 2 days, and then run it at that 62 or 60 and 60, like the guy was saying yesterday, right? And you do that, and if you can maintain that the whole way, your stuff should turn out pretty damn good. And so we condition our room first, we get it nice, and then once the plants are in, and then that first, I go from literally 80% down to 62 in 48 hours.
Yeah.
But we're not losing anything in the beginning, like if you do. So I know some other guys, I was talking to one today, and he's like, well, I start at down in the 40s, and then I bring it up real quick. And I'm like, okay, I get that I 100% get it. But she has data showing how much shit you're losing when you do it that way. So so that's just what we've done. And since then our product has improved vastly just from doing that. And again, we're tweaking as we go, because that's just part of the farming and making sure you're just doing it right. So I love that talk last night with that guy. I immediately hit follow on that guy. It was, and I love looking at that stuff, right? Great talks, just when he jars, how they jar, all that. I mean, that's what I need to know, because I don't know everything.
Yeah. It's about connecting this whole community together and connecting the right people and sharing the information. That's really how we're going to succeed and get more people smoking cannabis and less people drinking alcohol. Like that, ultimately is the real goal here, is normalizing this and, seeing cannabis consumption the same way that alcohol consumption is, which is pretty much widely promoted, I guess, in our society.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see cannabis consumption widely promoted, or at least to a neutral point.
Yeah. I'd like to go to an airport and be able to go into a smoke room and have a puff if I want, because you can get shit-faced at a bar, before you hop on a flight. You can pop a bunch of pills, but I mean, now thankfully there are, well, these I can slip into a bathroom and shit, right? And I can hit one of, but I mean, damn, I mean, why can't I just sit and enjoy it? Why can't I go to a hockey game and when during the intermission, go out and do that? Just take a quick puff and whatever. I mean, why can't I have an edible at a hockey game? Why can't you just sell me an edible?
Yeah.
Like, and we have a ways to go. That's probably the biggest, like, yeah, that's a huge hurdle for us is there's no normalization of it. And so, well, since starting, I mean, I smoke everywhere I can. I honestly, it sound terrible, but I was driving my beautiful 55 a couple of weeks ago, and I got pulled over because I was ripping in it, and I was smoking a joint. And the cop, and I had 2 pounds in the back seat, and in my bag, because you know the bag I carry around, like my car, like the smoke was billowing out of my, and I was right just by my house where he pulled me over to, but the smoke was billowing. I'm like, ah, fuck. He didn't say shit about it. Just gave me my speeding ticket. Not a word about it. And there's no way he didn't smell it. There's no way. He didn't say shit. I couldn't believe it. My wife's like, what? Like, she saw it. She was standing there and she's like, what? I got, and this isn't the first time I got pulled over. And I in Morinville a couple of years ago, and he pulled me over because I was on my cell phone. And he goes, like go over the cell phone. Then I see the second cop car pull up in the rear view, and I'm like, okay, well, here we go. Fuck. He comes up, and he's like, so here's your stuff for the being on the phone. He's like, and now we need to discuss that wonderful smell coming out of your truck there. And I said, yeah, I'm medical. Yes, I was having some. I got a headache going right now, blah, blah, blah. He goes, listen, man, you weren't driving in any kind of stupid. You're just on your phone, man, and you seem to be completely coherent. So I need to know where I can get some of this from my mom. And we sat there and talked for 10 minutes about it. And I have a video up on Facebook where I thanked that cop for being so fucking awesome about it and just trying to make it like it was like I wasn't doing anything wrong, because I really wasn't, other than being on my phone. I shouldn't have been on my phone because that's the law here in Alberta. Nothing.
Wow.
Didn't say boo about. He was okay with because I handed him my medical card that I had on me. I said, here's my medical card. And he told me why some of the reasons why some cops don't want to get involved with that, because it's charter right stuff and this and that. But it was amazing that some of the people you do come across that you'd never expect. So hopefully there's more people like that. And, I when I was young, I a cop in the RC, there was my football coach. He let me get away with a lot of shit when it came to cannabis. He would catch me and some friends, and he took it. That's all I'll say. And I don't know where it ended up. I'm not sure it ended up back at the detachment, but let's just say he was a good cop. And I mean, whatever, he never gave me shit. So, if we have people like that, my mom and dad now, just normalize showing my aunt and uncle and letting them smell it. And they might not partake in it, but I have more and more of my friends, or my mom and dad's friends and their friends asking me about how the plant can help them. And I do preface it by saying, listen, the plant is not a cure-all. I'm not here to sell you a snake oil, because, there's people that have literally taken it thinking it's going to cure something when most people know it's not. It'll help you, but it's not going to cure it 100%. So I hated seeing stuff being sold at like gas stations, like this will cure you. Well, no, come on. So, but I want people to be steered in the right direction. And like, I don't want to be taking a bunch of, I'm on diabetic medication, but cannabis helps lower it helps with my diabetes right now. And my pills have steadily, my medication's been dropping for the last year, especially since I've been smoking the Violator. I'm not sure why. I'm going to hopefully see something with that, but I've been on that a lot more. So that's dropping. My blood pressure meds, I'm on lower blood pressure meds now. They found my blood pressure goes up right when I smoke it. Doctor's like, well, maybe just don't smoke it, drink it, but I love smoking it, right? So, but there's tons of help. But I know that me being overweight, cannabis isn't going to help with that. I mean, there's some that don't make me have the munchies. There's some that, like the frosted fruitcake, I will pound a pizza and then 2 plates of sushi with that stuff. Like, it's crazy what that one does to me, man. I'll eat I'll just go, and I intermittent fast. So I'm just like, my stomach's like, what the fuck are you doing to me, bro? Like, so, I mean, there's that fun stuff, right? Like, it's, Yeah, that's where I have fun with it. So,
Absolutely.
but
Well, it must be very cool to be able to look through all that material. And I think now you've got your R&D license, so you're able to actually partake in said material.
Yeah, we are. I believe we're just in the process of getting that finalized and stuff. So we've been, we're doing what we do, and I am very fortunate that, like, I mean, I count there's a lot of fuckery in this industry, and there's a lot that I just bang my head at, but we are incredibly blessed to be able to be in this industry and make a living off of it. I never thought I didn't think for years it would ever happen that I would be able to start up a company. And it's been like you talked about your bank. Like I've had 3 banks close my accounts, say you got a week to get the fuck out. So shout out to Alberta Treasury Branch, who's totally helped us here the whole time in Alberta. They've welcomed me, and they don't care what I do. They're actually awesome about it. But I've been thrown out of 3 other banks and had every investment kicked out, canceled, sent to me, and I had to shift shit around. So yeah, it's that's the hard part of it. But I mean, being able to do this for a living, I can't, and the people I've met, man, some of the best people I've ever met in my life are in this industry. You're one of them, and I'm not trying to just say it because I love you, brother, but truly, like, you're one of them. Meeting Johnny B, having that Airbnb, and you tell me, oh, hey, Johnny B is going to stop by, and I'm like I've been watching his YouTube videos since he came onto YouTube. Like, I love Johnny. Like, I watch his videos so much, and so just to like him walking around, and then us joking, Johnny B.
I remember when I said that, and you looked so weird that I asked you. I was like, "Is that going to be okay?" And you were like, "Yeah, that's okay. That's okay." Because you're like,
"Yeah." Well, I was just like, okay, and then I got to spend a couple days with him, right? And then meeting Ted and meeting Marcus and Tim and all the people I got to meet at all these different things. They've all, and then Tim, when he came back here to go to what he's doing over there at just close to us with what's going on. To invite me over to come and look at it, right? Like, he only met me the one time. And he's like, "Yo, man, I'm going to be in the area. Let's get together." Like that's what I love about this is these people you meet. Kevin Jodry, who, I mean, Ed Rose, all these other guys who are big Ramo, they don't have to, and they come out. They're like, "Come on in, man. You're part of the circle, bro. Come on and talk. If you want to talk, man, and we'll talk." Like, I've never had such a welcoming industry in my life. Like, never. Like, quite honestly, a lot of them are rather cutthroat. And I'm not saying this isn't cutthroat, because it can be very cutthroat. But you meet the right people. Like, I met Shay LeBlanc, right? The Unicorn. Like, man, some of these guys, they're just like, "Come down to the farm." I've had guys from Ontario come and see us. Sylvain out in Quebec doing research for us. I've been able to meet such amazing human beings. Yeah. And growers and my staff that I get to work with every day. And it's just, I'm really honestly blessed by the Canada gods, man, that I get to do this for a living every day. And there's stressful days, but I get to come home, and I mean, I get to indulge. I get to try my product now. I get to enjoy the fruits of our labor. I get to travel a bit and see people, and I have people who want to work with me on a project. Like I said, for the opioid thing, a lot of people have reached out and said, "Hey, like I'll work with you on that." And I would never expect some of these people who have contacted me since then to tell me they want to work with me on it. So amazing, this industry, man, and that's what I love about it. And like I said, it's tough because social media doesn't make it easy. Sometimes, accounts get deleted and all this stuff, and people put a lot of work to getting their presence out there. And so watching, like, I try to get onto as many lives as I can in the background, and my wife doesn't like it at times because it's cannabis around here 24/7. Like, I got to contact Zoom soon because I got to order some of those prints, and my wife's been fighting me on. She's like, "You ain't fucking order." Like, I'm like, "No, I'm ordering." I'm like, "I need them." She's like, "Well, they're not staying in here." I'm like, "Look at this beautiful thing." She's like, "It's a fucking, what is that?" I'm like, "That's what makes the money, honey." Yeah. Like, that's a close-up of the money. Yeah, that's the money maker. So, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to have it up on the fucking wall, right? And so, that I love the plant so much, and I'm so fucking happy I get to work with it. And I try to go on all these lives that I possibly can, because I get to learn from so many people, and I can't express enough that That's probably the one thing that I've been the most happy about is how this community's just been so fucking awesome. Yeah. Like it truly has been just amazing.
Yeah, it's a special thing. It's, you know, we're working towards something special, and like this is a lot more than a job to a lot of us. And the longer you spend in it, it's the easier to see kind of like who's who in the zoo very quickly. And you know, you put people into buckets, and some people you can put into a bucket where you're treating them like family, like you've known them for 20 years and you just met them. And some people you're going to keep at, you know, 3 to 5 meters for the rest of your life. So I think that, you know, the more time you spend in this industry and in whatever industry that you're in, the easier it is to recognize the players. So, you know, I definitely recognize how special it is. And it's been so cool to see you come in, and I remember that conference vividly, and to see you grow through these growing pains and get to where you are, where, you know, you're finding your footing and a voice in the community and wanting to participate more. And I think that's super important. Like there's so many guys like yourself that are incredibly talented, who have a story to tell, who just aren't quite ready yet to get on and start telling their story. And I think guys like you are an inspiration to those who are, you know, maybe not quite ready, but are considering coming out and identifying themselves. Because, you know, this community needs to be built, and the only way we build it is by sharing the stories publicly and sharing what we do publicly, and not being ashamed of what smoking weed looks like, or what it looks like when we all get together and have fun. Because, you know, God knows there's every drunken bar scene in a movie that you could just flip on, or a commercial or a TV show. And you know, I commend you for coming on and sharing your story and taking the time. Like where can people find you? Like after watching this, where's the best place for people to reach you?
Honestly, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not on that much. I am trying to get better at my social media. I honestly am. Instagram at Chief Grow Officer. We're creating a bit of a character called the Green Santa because of my backpack. People in Toronto will call me the Green Santa Claus. So we're going to Green Santa because we can't call me Santa because of regulations. So we're creating a bit of a character on there. So I think there's only like 2 followers on that so far because we haven't done much with it. But I'm going to try to kind of play on that a bit. That's a little loophole we're going to try to use to our advantage with that. But really on Instagram at Chief Grow Officer. I am on Facebook, Dustan McLean, if you're a grower and stuff. I have lots of grower friends, people I've never met face-to-face, or ones that I met on Facebook and then met afterwards somewhere because we became Facebook friends, you know, like obviously I'll check you out who you are, obviously, but I mean, mostly it's Instagram as much as I can. I've been incredibly busy with our grow because we want to keep growing and we want to keep going and going and going. And I'm trying to train people, well, train, just to teach them, not even train, it's not training, it's teaching how to grow better, how to work in a grow. I want to put out as many people, strong people into the industry that I can. If they move on from our company or if we promote from them, however they go in the industry, there's so many people that want to get into this industry. They don't know where they sit. So I'll help them find their place, and I want them to excel. And so, at Parkland Flower, I'm going to be running the social media accounts right away for a while we're getting some social media people in and some other people in to help us really get that through. Because I don't know how to run TikTok for the life of me. I think I've done one story in my life. Like, I don't know how to do reels. I'm learning all that shit slowly. I'm an old man with a VCR blinking 12, man. Like, remnants of my dad calling me saying, this fucking VCR, man, how do I fix the time? That's how I feel when my kids are like, Dad, you don't even know what the fuck you're doing, buddy. Like, come on. So I'm learning that shit as fast as I can. I'm going to be on much more because we've got some really nice stuff coming down. I want to tell the stories of our staff, of our product more than anything, though. I really believe you have to have a strong product in order for people to listen to your story, because people will give up on you real quick if you don't got anything good. Like, your story can only get you so far. So, but I want to tell the story of our product and of the people growing it and all that stuff. So you can find me on Instagram. And for anybody watching this, please, like, I honestly cannot implore you enough. The things you can learn from watching the lives on Instagram, especially from Jameson's stuff, man. Yeah, I can't thank you enough for bringing me and making me feel welcome in the community, brother. That I still like. When you and Paul came up to me in Niagara that first year, I'll never forget it, man. And it was the most welcoming. I just couldn't believe it. I told Kylie, I was like, I don't know who those guys, like, I don't know, like, I've met them, I think, through you over the phone. I don't know, but wow, holy fuck me, man. And then a couple other events, and then now it's like
It's
you see
family.
each other. It's
Family.
just it's family, man. It's the fam. It's the boys. It's the group. It's everything, man. And when people, when I open my locker, all the pictures of all these amazing people I've met in the industry, and like four of the pictures of are like me and you and Matt, and then there's pictures of me and Ed, just pictures of everybody. Ramo, and like Ramo's Ramo and his wife Sandra, they're two of the most sweetest people in the industry, and I can't thank them enough as well. And
Sandra.
to support some of these like a lot of people that I would never have expected support from. This amount of support I've gotten is like truly like it touches my heart, man. There's days I literally have tears coming out of my eyes for some of the people I meet. I really wish Frenchie could have been around longer for that conversation to continue, but I got to meet Madame Cannoli and tell her how much that meeting meant to me. And at one of Frenchie's tributes, they had put up the picture of me and Frenchie in that tribute, and I couldn't have thanked them enough because that 2 hours, like I said, changed my life, man. And a lot of moments I have with you changed my life in my growing. And a lot of with the people that you bring into me and other people. And I'm going out to Victoria just to go visit Ted, hopefully right away here, and just go to the Cannabis Club and see those guys. Like I had the ball of my life that night, and see Eric and just go out and see those guys, even just for a quick 24-hour rip around. And
Yeah.
and hopefully, I'm going to promise you that next spring I'm going to bring the 55 there down. That's behind me there, where you and I are going to go cruise, and we're going to do a dab with that girl.
100%. 100%.
So, there it is. Well, that's kind of, but yeah, no, it's yeah, I want to spread. I want to drive that thing down to a cup and rip open the door and just Cheech and Chong it. Like I just like fuck, like that's what I want to do. I just want to enjoy, and I think we are blessed to do what we do, brother. And I thank you so much for this kind of stuff, because it takes guys like me out of my shell. I can't believe I've talked this much about like this, and yeah, man, it's crazy. It's crazy,
Dude,
man.
I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate the time. We're gonna do it. We're gonna put together stuff, and you're gonna be a pillar of this. There's very few people who walk the talk, and you did it. You got the license, you got the facility, you got to a licensed product, and you're still showing up and looking in the eyes and participating in the community. And a lot of people at some point lose that and then stop coming to the conferences. And you're not going anywhere. And, the vision that you have is definitely a vision we share. And I appreciate you coming on and telling your story, and we're definitely going to have you back for an update. But, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it. And thanks again, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. And honestly, I was looking for my banyan tree hat, like looking hard for it. And my kid goes, "Dad, I left it at school." so
Dude, that is
so
totally
I love like my youngest Grady, he loves the plant. Like, so that's why, like, when I was like, I can't even be, I can't be mad at that, man. He's like, "Oh, I like that hat, man. Like, I like it. It's got the big writing." Like, I was like, "Done. It's yours, brother. You can have it all you want. Just don't take my shirt, because I need that." So I was literally hunting for it, because I'm like, "Oh, my hair from wearing my hairnet today at work." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, my banyan tree hat. Awesome. Where is it?" Grady's like, "Yeah, I left her at school, bro. Sorry."
Oh, bro, we'll get you another one, man. We'll get you.
It's no worries, brother. I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's at Chief Grow Officer on Instagram, and it's at Parkland Flower. So make you check that out. And what's the Xanta one? The Jolly Green.
The green Xanta. Green Zanta. Yeah, I'm gonna try to blow this up. The beard. We're gonna try to figure out something with it.
The minute you said it, I was like, "Oh yeah, that I'm into that. That works." So
yeah, so we're gonna try to play with it a bit. And it was just when I went into Cookies in Toronto, there it was pretty funny. Like, a couple of people were joking about it, and a couple of their employees were like, "Green Xanta, I like it." Okay, yeah. So whatever, we'll have fun with it, man. I love. Hey, if you see me around with my bag, honestly, and we're at a conference, come in, and I love sharing my weed with people, man. So come and hit me up, and I'll throw it right at you. So let's have fun with it.
Man, thanks again. Appreciate you. Everyone, don't
Appreciate it,
forget
brother.
to like and subscribe. Cheers, everybody. Have a great day.